The train's whistle screamed through the Wyoming darkness like a woman's dying breath. Mara Keaton pressed her trembling fingers against the frost-covered window, watching the platform lights blur through her unshed tears. 26 years old, 4 cities, 4 rejections. And now, standing alone on another godforsaken station platform, she faced the cruelest truth of all. No one was coming. Not this time. Not ever. The conductor's voice echoed behind her. "Last stop, miss. Everyone off." But where could she go when everywhere was nowhere? When your own skin made you invisible? Before we begin Mara's journey from abandoned stranger to beloved mother, I invite you to stay with us until the very end of this story. And please, comment below with the city you're watching from. I want to see how far Mara's tale travels across this world. The cold hit Mara like a physical blow the moment her worn boots touched the platform. December in Wyoming territory wasn't just winter, it was a living, breathing predator that sought out the weak and unprepared. And tonight, Mara Keaton was both. She stood motionless as the other passengers rushed past her, wrapped in thick furs and hurrying toward waiting arms, warm carriages, and homes that knew them by name. A gentleman in a fine coat bumped her shoulder without apology. A woman with 2 children pulled her youngest away when he stared too long at Mara's face, at the copper skin that marked her as neither white enough nor Indian enough to belong anywhere at all. The train's departure bell clanged once, twice, 3 times. Then the great iron beast groaned back to life, belching steam and smoke as it pulled away from the station, taking with it Mara's last thread of hope. She watched it disappear into the darkness, the red lantern on the caboose growing smaller and smaller until it was just another dying star in the vast Wyoming night. "Miss?" The station attendant approached, his weathered face lined with practiced sympathy and impatient duty. "Miss, you can't stay here. Station closes in 10 minutes. Mara's fingers tightened around the handle of her single carpet bag, everything she owned in this world reduced to one threadbare satchel. I'm waiting for someone." "Ain't nobody coming tonight, miss. Last arrival was your train." His eyes flickered over her face, her clothes, the letter clutched in her other hand. Understanding dawned in his expression, followed quickly by pity. "You one of them mail-order brides?" The shame burned hotter than the cold. "Thomas Garrett," she whispered. "He was supposed to meet me. He sent for me. He paid my fare from Denver, and he—" "Thomas Garrett?" The attendant's eyebrows rose. "Miss, Thomas Garrett married Sally Henderson 3 weeks ago. Whole town went to the wedding." He shifted uncomfortably. "I'm real sorry, but wherever you came from, looks like your letters got crossed somewhere. You want me to fetch the sheriff?" No, not the sheriff. Not another authority figure looking at her with that mixture of suspicion and disgust, wondering what kind of woman traveled alone, what kind of desperation drove her from town to town, city to city, always searching for a place that would have her. "No, thank you," Mara heard herself say, her voice coming from somewhere far away. I'll find my way. Town's got a boarding house, but I gotta warn you, Mrs. Sullivan don't take to strangers much, especially not—" He trailed off, but Mara didn't need him to finish. "Especially not half-breeds, especially not women without husbands or fathers or any proper place in decent society." "I understand." Mara forced herself to smile, that practiced expression she'd perfected over 26 years of being unwanted. "Thank you for your kindness." She walked away before he could offer more useless sympathy, before the tears threatening to spill could give him something else to pity. Her boots crunched through the thin layer of snow covering the wooden sidewalk, each step taking her deeper into this strange town where she knew no one and no one wanted to know her. Riverbend, Wyoming. Population 847, according to the sign she'd glimpsed from the train window. One main street lined with false-fronted buildings that looked like stage props in the moonlight. A general store, already closed. A saloon spilling yellow lamplight and drunken laughter onto the frozen street. A bank, a barber shop, a dress shop with a closed sign hanging crooked in the window. And at the far end of the street, a small white church with a peaked roof and a bell tower that pierced the winter sky like a prayer. Mara's feet carried her toward it without conscious thought. Churches meant sanctuary. Churches meant warmth, even if just for a moment. Churches meant, "We're closed, miss." She spun to find a thin, elderly man in a minister's collar standing in the church doorway, one hand on the door as if to bar her entry. His eyes took in her appearance with the swift, damning assessment she'd learned to expect. Foreign blood. No wedding ring. Traveling alone. Dangerous. "Please," Mara said, and hated the begging in her voice. "I just need... Is there somewhere I could sit? Just for tonight? I'll be gone by morning, I promise. I won't touch anything. I won't... The boarding house is 2 streets over." His voice was kind but firm, the voice of a man who'd given too many handouts to too many drifters and learned to guard his charity. Mrs. Sullivan won't rent to someone like me." The words came out harder than Mara intended. "You know it. I know it. So please, Reverend, I'm begging, just let me sit on one of your benches until morning, that's all. Just a roof over my head for one night." Something flickered in his eyes. Conscience, maybe. Or perhaps just exhaustion with his own hypocrisy. He sighed, a long breath that clouded white in the frozen air. "Back bench only. Don't light any candles. Don't touch the altar. And you're gone by first light. Understand?" "Yes, thank you. God bless you. But he was already walking away, pulling his coat tighter against the cold, leaving Mara alone with her gratitude and her shame. The church was dark inside, lit only by moonlight streaming through plain glass windows. Simple wooden benches lined both sides of a narrow aisle leading to a modest altar. No stained glass, no ornate decorations. This was a frontier church, built for function rather than beauty, for survival rather than salvation. Mara sank onto the back bench, her carpet bag clutched to her chest like a shield. The wood was hard and cold beneath her, but it was better than the street, better than the station platform, better than so many nights she'd spent huddled in train stations and cheap hotels, waiting for men who never came, chasing promises that turned to ash the moment she arrived. 4 cities. The thought echoed in her mind like a death knell. 4 men who sent for you. 4 men who took one look and decided you weren't worth keeping. St. Louis first. Marcus Webb, who'd written such beautiful letters about his farm and his loneliness and his need for a good woman to share his life. She'd stepped off that train with hope singing in her veins, only to see his face go pale when he saw her skin, her eyes, the unmistakable evidence of her Cheyenne mother's blood. "I'm sorry," he'd said, backing away like she carried disease. "There's been a mistake. I can't. My family would never. I'm sorry." Then Kansas City. Robert Morrison, who'd seemed so kind in his letters, so understanding when she'd carefully explained her heritage, so insistent that it didn't matter to him. But it had mattered to his mother, to his sister, to the entire town. She'd lasted 3 days before he'd put her back on a train with money for her ticket and apologies that meant nothing. Denver next. James Collier, who'd actually married her, stood before a justice of the peace and put a ring on her finger and promised before God to love and cherish her. The marriage had lasted 2 weeks before his business partners gave him an ultimatum: the Indian wife or the partnership. She still had the divorce papers in her bag, still felt the sting of his final words. "You're a good woman, Mara, but I can't sacrifice everything for what we have." And finally, tonight, Thomas Garrett, who hadn't even bothered to meet her before marrying someone else. 4 cities, 4 failures, 4 times you believe someone might want you. Mara reached into her bag with numb fingers, pulling out the only thing of value she owned, a small leather pouch on a rawhide cord. Her mother's protection charm, filled with sage and sweetgrass and tobacco, tied with red thread and prayers in a language Mara barely remembered. Her mother had pressed it into her hands the day she died, when Mara was just 16 and terrified and alone in a world that had no place for mixed-blood orphans. "You are enough," her mother had whispered, her voice already fading. "Remember that, Nestie. You are exactly enough." But her mother had been wrong. Mara had spent 10 years learning that lesson in the cruelest ways possible. She wasn't enough. Not for her mother's people, who looked at her too light skin and saw betrayal. Not for her father's people, who looked at her too dark features and saw savage. Not for any of the men who'd promised her home and family and belonging, only to decide she cost more than they were willing to pay. The charm felt heavy in her palm, warm despite the freezing air. Mara brought it to her lips, closed her eyes, and whispered into the darkness, a prayer to God she wasn't sure existed, in words she barely knew how to speak. Let someone see me as enough, just once. Please. Let someone look at me and see something worth keeping. Her voice cracked on the last word. She pressed the charm to her chest, pulled her thin coat tighter, and curled onto the hard bench, too tired even to cry, too broken to hope. Outside, snow began to fall, soft and silent, covering the town in white. Inside the little church, Mara Keaton drifted into uneasy sleep, dreaming of a home she'd never known and a belonging she'd never found. She didn't know that tomorrow morning everything would change. She didn't know that a little girl with lonely eyes and a wild imagination was about to grab her hand and refuse to let go. She didn't know that sometimes salvation came not from prayers whispered in darkness, but from the touch of a child who saw not what you were, but who you could become. All Mara knew as sleep finally claimed her was that she had nowhere left to run, no more cities to try, no more chances to fail. Tomorrow, she would have to figure out what came after the end of hope. Spoke. Morning came too soon and not soon enough. Mara woke to frozen muscles and a stiff neck, her body protesting every movement as she slowly sat up. Gray winter light filtered through the church windows, casting everything in shades of cold and shadow. Her breath misted white in the frigid air. She could see frost on the inside of the windows. She'd survived the night. That was something, at least. Mara carefully repacked her carpet bag, making sure her mother's charm was safely tucked inside. She smoothed her wrinkled skirt, adjusted her threadbare coat, and tried to make herself presentable. Though for what purpose, she couldn't say. Where would she go? What would she do? The church door opened with a bang that made her jump. A woman in a heavy wool cloak swept in, took one look at Mara, and pressed her lips into a thin line of disapproval. Reverend Michaels said you'd be gone by first light. I'm leaving now. Mara stood, clutching her bag. I apologize for the intrusion. Alpshin, there's coffee and bread at the rectory kitchen, side door. The woman's voice was sharp but not entirely unkind. Eat something before you go. You look half dead with cold. Mara's throat tightened with unexpected gratitude. Thank you. That's very kind. It's Christian duty, not kindness. The woman turned away, already busy with whatever tasks brought her to the church so early. Side door, then move along. The rectory kitchen was small and warm, heated by a pot-bellied stove that radiated blessed heat. A simple breakfast was laid out on a wooden table, coffee in a chipped pot, fresh bread, a pat of butter, and a jar of preserves. Mara's stomach clenched with hunger. She couldn't remember the last time she'd eaten a real meal. She forced herself to eat slowly, savoring each bite, knowing she didn't know when she'd eat again. The coffee was bitter and strong, burning away some of the fog in her mind. The bread was fresh, probably baked that morning. Someone had cared enough to prepare this meal, even if that same person couldn't wait for Mara to leave. She was draining the last of her coffee when she felt it, a gentle tug on her sleeve. Mara turned and found herself looking into the most extraordinary pair of blue eyes she'd ever seen. They belonged to a little girl, perhaps 4 years old, with tangled blonde curls escaping from beneath a knitted cap, and a face smudged with dirt or chocolate or both. The child studied Mara with the serious, unblinking intensity that only small children could manage. Are you sad? The little girl asked, her voice high and clear and heartbreakingly direct. Mara blinked, startled. What? You look like the princess in Papa's stories, the one who got lost in the woods and cried because she couldn't find her way home. The girl tilted her head, still holding Mara's sleeve. Are you lost? Something inside Mara's chest cracked open. She stared at this child who saw not a half-breed, not a mail-order bride, not a woman traveling alone, but a lost princess from a story. Tears she'd been holding back for hours suddenly burned in her eyes. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I think I am lost. The little girl nodded sagely, as if this confirmed something she'd already suspected. That's okay. Papa says everybody gets lost sometimes. He says the important thing is finding people who help you get found again. She paused, then added with perfect childish logic, I could help you get found if you want. Lily, where did you— Oh God, I'm so sorry. Mara looked up to find a man striding into the kitchen, his face a mixture of embarrassment and exhaustion. He was tall, lean, with a dark hair that needed cutting and eyes that held the hollow shadows of someone who hadn't slept properly in a very long time. Work-roughened hands, clothes that were clean but worn. A man who labored with his body and carried too much weight on his shoulders. Cole Harrow, though Mara didn't know his name yet. All she knew was that he looked at his daughter with such fierce, protective love that it made her heart ache. I told you to wait outside, he said, but his voice held no real anger. You can't just go running up to strangers, sweetheart. But Papa, she's not a stranger. She's the lost princess. Lily's hand tightened on Mara's sleeve. We have to help her. Cole's eyes finally landed on Mara, really looking at her for the first time. She saw the automatic assessment. Woman, alone, Indian blood, traveling, probably dangerous or desperate or both. She'd seen that look in 100 pairs of eyes. She braced herself for the rejection, for the polite but firm dismissal, But then something shifted in his expression. Some of the wariness faded, replaced by the exhausted recognition of someone who knew what it meant to be lost. He saw her, Mara realized with shock, not just her skin or her circumstances, but her, the person beneath all the labels and judgments. I apologize for my daughter, he said quietly. She has a big imagination and not much fear of strangers. He reached for Lily's hand. Come on, sweetheart, let the lady finish her breakfast in peace. No! Lily pulled away from him, her small face set in stubborn lines. Papa, she's all alone. She doesn't have anywhere to go. I can tell. Those blue eyes turned back to Mara, wide and pleading. You don't, do you? Have anywhere to go? Mara's throat closed. She should lie. She should tell this child that everything was fine, that she had plans and purpose, and somewhere to be. But she'd spent 10 years lying about who she was and what she needed, and suddenly she was just too tired for one more false word. No, she admitted softly. No, I don't have anywhere to go. Lily's face brightened with the triumphant light of a child whose intuition has been proven right. She whirled to face her father. See? She needs help, Papa, like you always say we should help people who need it. Remember? You said that's what Mama would want us to do. Cole flinched at the mention of his late wife. Mara saw it clearly, the way pain flashed across his features before he schooled them back to careful neutrality. Lily, it's not that simple. Why not? We got an extra room. We got lots of food. She could stay with us. Just for a little while, until she figures things out. Lily turned back to Mara, her entire being radiating hope and certainty. Papa has a ranch. It's real pretty, with horses and chickens and a big garden that doesn't grow anymore because nobody knows how to make it work. But you look like you could make things grow. Do you know how to make things grow? Yes, I know how to garden. Mara looked helplessly at Cole, seeing his discomfort, his desire to protect his daughter from disappointment, his obvious internal struggle. But your father is right. It's not that simple. You don't know me. You don't know anything about me. I know you're sad, Lily said with devastating simplicity. I know you're all alone, and I know you need help. She paused, then played her final card with the instinctive genius of a child who knew her power. Please, can't she come home with us, Papa? Just to visit? Just for a little while? Cole closed his eyes for a long moment. When he opened them, he looked at Mara with resignation and something else. Something that might have been recognition, or maybe just bone-deep weariness with fighting against the universe's plans. Where did you come from? He asked. What brought you to Riverbend? Mara could have lied, should have lied, but Lily's hand was still on her sleeve, warm and insistent, and something about this man's tired honesty demanded the truth. I'm a mail-order bride, she said, lifting her chin. Or I was supposed to be. The man who sent for me married someone else. I have no money, no family, nowhere to go. She took a breath. I'm mixed heritage, Cheyenne and white. I've tried 4 different cities and 4 different men, and none of them— She couldn't finish. The words hurt too much. None of them deserved you. Lily announced with absolute conviction. That's what Papa says when mean people are mean. He says they don't deserve nice things because they're too stupid to see what's good. Lily, Cole's face flushed. That's not, I don't, he sighed, running a hand through his hair. Look, Miss Keaton, Mara Keaton, Miss Keaton. He studied her for another long moment, and Mara felt the weight of that gaze, measuring her not for what she was, but for what she might be. My daughter is right about one thing. We do have an extra room. My wife, he swallowed hard. My wife passed 8 months ago. The house is too big for just the two of us and too empty. I can't pay much, but if you're willing to help with cooking and household work, maybe look after Lily while I'm working the ranch, I could offer room and board, just temporarily, until you figure out what you want to do next. Mara stared at him, unable to process what she was hearing. You're offering me a job? I'm offering you a place to stay in exchange for help I desperately need. His voice was quiet but firm. I'm not offering charity, and I'm not offering anything. Improper. Separate room, separate lives. You'd be helping me out just as much as I'd be helping you. But you don't know me. You don't know anything about, I know you told my daughter the truth when you could have lied. Cole glanced down at Lily, who was practically vibrating with excitement. I know you're alone and scared and you need help. And I know... He met Mara's eyes again. I know what it's like to be so tired you can barely stand, but you keep standing anyway because there's no other choice. I see that in you, Miss Keaton. The same thing I see in the mirror every morning. Say yes. Lily bounced on her toes. Please say yes. I'll be real good. I promise. I'll help you with the garden, and I'll show you all my favorite places, and I'll teach you the names of all the horses, and... Lily, breathe. Cole put a hand on his daughter's shoulder, but he was smiling now, a tired but genuine smile that transformed his face. Give Miss Keaton a chance to think. But Mara didn't need time to think. She'd spent 10 years thinking, planning, trying to control her destiny, and where had it gotten her? Alone in a strange town with nothing but a carpet bag and a prayer. Maybe it was time to stop thinking and start trusting this man's honest eyes, this child's open heart, this impossible moment that felt like something close to fate. Yes, she heard herself say. Yes, I'll come. Lily's shriek of joy echoed through the small kitchen. The little girl launched herself at Mara, wrapping thin arms around her waist in a fierce hug that nearly knocked Mara off her feet. You're gonna love it. We got the best sunsets, and Papa makes real good coffee, and we got a dog named Bear who's real friendly and... Easy, sweetheart. Cole gently extracted his daughter, but his eyes were warm as they met Mara's. Thank you, Miss Keaton. You don't know how much... He cleared his throat. We should get going. It's an hour ride to the ranch, and I want to get back before the afternoon cold sets in. They stepped out of the rectory into a world transformed by snow. Everything was white and clean and new, as if the universe itself was offering Mara a fresh start. Cole's wagon waited in the church lot, a sturdy, weathered farm wagon hitched to 2 patient horses. He helped Lily climb into the back, then turned to offer Mara his hand. She hesitated for just a moment, staring at that outstretched hand. This was real. This was happening. She was really going home with this stranger and his daughter, trusting them with her safety, her future, maybe even her last fragile thread of hope. Cole must have seen something in her face because his expression softened. You can change your mind, he said quietly. No judgment if you do. I know this is strange, and probably not what you planned when you came to Riverbend. I didn't have a plan, Mara admitted. Not anymore. Then maybe this is better than a plan. Maybe this is just what's supposed to happen next. Mara looked at his hand again, work roughened, honest, offered without expectation or demand. Then she looked at Lily, who was bouncing in the wagon bed, her face bright with the uncomplicated joy of a child who believed in happy endings. Let someone see me as enough, she'd prayed last night in the darkness. Just once. Let someone look at me and see something worth keeping. Maybe the universe was answering, maybe not in the way she'd expected, not with a husband or a wedding or the conventional belonging she'd been chasing, but with something else. Something that looked like a tired rancher's desperate need and a lonely little girl's insistent heart. Mara took Cole Harrow's hand and let him help her into the wagon. As they pulled away from the church, she turned to look back at the little white building where she'd spent the worst night of her life. But it didn't look so terrible now in the morning light. It looked like what it was, not an ending, but a threshold, a place between one life and the next. Lily chattered the entire ride, a constant stream of commentary about everything they passed, every thought that flitted through her active mind. That's Mr. Peterson's store. He's real grumpy, but he makes good candy. That's where Mama used to buy fabric, but Papa doesn't go there anymore because it makes him sad. That's the tree where I saw an owl once, or maybe it was a big crow, but I think it was an owl. Do you like owls? I think they're real smart. Cole didn't talk much, just let his daughter fill the silence, occasionally correcting some wild exaggeration or answering a question. But Mara caught him glancing at her several times, and each time she saw not suspicion or calculation, but simply curiosity mixed with a cautious, fragile hope. They left the town behind, following a road that wound through snow-covered hills and scattered stands of pine. The landscape was harsh and beautiful, empty of softness but full of stark grandeur. Mara found herself breathing deeper, feeling some tight knot in her chest begin to loosen. Space. Sky. Air that didn't taste like coal smoke and crowded streets. There, Lily pointed ahead. That's home. The Harrow Ranch appeared as they crested a rise, a small collection of buildings nestled in a shallow valley. A two-story house with a wide porch, weathered but solid. A barn that had seen better days but still stood proud. A chicken coop, a smokehouse, fenced paddocks with a few horses grazing despite the snow. And beyond it all, mountains rising blue and white against the winter sky. It was beautiful. It was isolated. It was the kind of place where a woman could breathe without judgment, where her heritage might matter less than her willingness to work. Don't, Mara warned herself, don't start hoping yet. You've been disappointed too many times. But as Cole pulled the wagon to a stop in front of the house, and Lily jumped down to grab Mara's hand with both of hers, and a large shaggy dog came bounding around the corner, barking, "Welcome." Mara felt it anyway, that dangerous, fragile thing spreading its wings inside her chest. Hope. "Welcome to the Harrow Ranch, Miss Keaton," Cole said, and something in his tired smile suggested he knew exactly how afraid she was and how brave she was trying to be. "Welcome home," Lily shouted, already pulling Mara toward the house. "Come see your room. It's got a window that looks at the mountains and everything." Mara let herself be pulled forward into this new life she hadn't asked for but desperately needed. Behind them, the dog barked and bounded. Above them, the winter sun broke through the clouds, painting the snow gold. And in her carpet bag, forgotten for the moment, her mother's protection charm warmed against her clothing, as if even it knew that something had shifted, that some prayer whispered in darkness had been heard and answered in ways Mara could never have imagined. The lost princess had found her way into the woods. Now she just had to figure out if this was the kind of story where she got to stay. The house smelled like dust and loneliness. Mara noticed it the moment Lily pulled her through the front door, that particular scent of a home where life had stopped flowing, where routines had calcified into mere survival, where joy had packed its bags and left without forwarding address. "Papa says I can't go in Mama's sewing room anymore," Lily announced, still clutching Mara's hand as she led her through a narrow hallway. "He keeps the door locked. But your room is right next to mine, see? So we can talk through the wall at night if we get scared." Cole appeared behind them, carrying Mara's carpet bag with an apologetic expression. "Lily, give Miss Keaton some space to breathe. She just got here." "But I'm showing her the house. That's being a good hostess, right? That's what Mama always said." The little girl's voice held a desperate edge, as if maintaining these rituals, these fragments of her mother's teachings, might somehow keep the woman's memory alive. "You're being a wonderful hostess," Mara said gently, squeezing the small hand in hers. "But maybe your papa's right. Maybe I should settle in a bit first." Lily's face fell, and Mara immediately regretted the suggestion, but Cole stepped in smoothly, crouching down to his daughter's level. "How about you go check if Bear's water bowl is frozen? Miss Keaton will still be here when you come back. I promise." "You really promise? You won't let her leave. I really promise." Satisfied, Lily released Mara's hand and bounded toward the back of the house, calling for the dog. Cole straightened, running a hand through his hair in what Mara was beginning to recognize as a habitual gesture of exhaustion. I apologize. She's been so lonely since... He couldn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. The grief hung between them like smoke. She's wonderful, Mara said, and meant it. You've raised a remarkable child, Mr. Harrow. Cole, please, and I can't take credit. That was all my wife's doing. Sarah had a gift with children, with people. She could make anyone feel welcome, seen. He gestured vaguely at himself. I'm just trying not to break what she built. Mara recognized that feeling, that terror of being inadequate to the task, of failing to honor someone else's legacy. She'd felt it every day since her mother died, trying to hold on to teachings and traditions she only half remembered, in a language she barely spoke. Let me show you your room, Cole said, clearly eager to change the subject. It's not much, but it's warm and dry. Better than... He stopped abruptly, his face flushing. I'm sorry, that was thoughtless. Better than a church bench? Mara finished for him, managing a small smile. Yes, Mr. Harrow, Cole. It is better than that, much better. The room he showed her was small but clean, with a narrow bed covered in a faded quilt, a simple dresser with a cracked mirror, and a window that looked out toward the mountains just as Lily had promised. Someone, probably Cole himself, had made an effort. Fresh linens, a pitcher of water on the dresser, a lamp with oil already filled. Bathroom's at the end of the hall, he said, setting her bag on the bed. Water heats on the stove in the kitchen. We usually eat around 6, but I can show you where everything is now if you want to start earning your keep right away. There was no judgment in his tone, just practical matter-of-factness. This was an arrangement, he was reminding them both. A business transaction. Room and board in exchange for work. Nothing more complicated than that. I'd like that, Mara said. I'd rather be useful than sit idle. Something flickered in his eyes, approval maybe, or relief. I'll wait downstairs then. Take your time. After he left, Mara sank onto the edge of the bed and allowed herself one shaking breath, then another. She'd done it. She'd actually found a place, at least temporarily. A roof, a bed, a purpose. It wasn't what she'd dreamed of on that train from Denver. No husband, no real home, no belonging. But it was something more than she'd had 12 hours ago. She unpacked quickly, not that there was much to unpack. 3 dresses, all worn, undergarments that had been mended more times than she could count, a comb with missing teeth, a small bag of herbs her mother had taught her to use for healing and protection, and the leather charm, which she placed carefully on the dresser where she could see it. Still with me, Mama? She whispered to it, to the empty room, to the ghost of a woman who'd died believing her daughter was exactly enough. I hope you're still with me. Downstairs, Cole was waiting in the kitchen with Lily, who had apparently recruited Bear, an enormous shaggy dog of indeterminate breed, to help with her welcoming committee. The dog bounded over to sniff Mara thoroughly before deciding she was acceptable and collapsing at her feet with a contented groan. He likes you, Lily crowed. He doesn't like everybody. He growled at Mrs. Patterson when she came to bring casserole after Mama died. Papa said it was 'cause she wears too much perfume, but I think it's 'cause she's mean. Lily, Cole's voice held a warning, but Mara could see him fighting a smile. The kitchen was larger than Mara expected, with a cast-iron stove that radiated blessed warmth, a long wooden table scarred by years of use, and shelves lined with mismatched dishes and dusty jars. A pump stood by the sink, and through the window Mara could see the barn and paddocks, everything outlined in white snow and gray winter light. I'm not much of a cook, Cole admitted. We've been living on beans and bacon mostly. Whatever's simple. Sarah always... He swallowed hard. She always said the kitchen was her domain. I tried to help, but she'd just laugh and kick me out. Said I'd burn water if given half a chance. Mara moved to the shelves, taking inventory. Flour, sugar, salt, lard, dried beans, canned goods, coffee, tea. Basic supplies, but enough to work with. When did you last have a proper meal, something besides beans? Cole and Lily exchanged glances. Lily said. A really long time. 2 months, Cole said quietly. Mrs. Patterson and some of the other church ladies brought food after Sarah died, but that ran out and I haven't had time to think about cooking. There's always so much to do, and Lily needs watching, and the animals need tending, and he stopped, his jaw tight. I'm making excuses. Truth is, I don't know how to do this without her. Any of it. The raw honesty in his voice cut through Mara's defenses. This wasn't a man offering charity from a position of strength. This was a man drowning, reaching for a lifeline, admitting he couldn't survive alone. Then it's good I'm here, Mara heard herself say. Let me cook dinner tonight. Let me show you what I can do. She worked while they watched, her hands moving through familiar motions that had nothing to do with being Cheyenne or white and everything to do with being human. With the universal language of feeding hungry people, of transforming basic ingredients into comfort. She found potatoes in the cellar, carrots too, and dried beef that she could work with. Her mother had taught her to make food stretch, to coax flavor from simple things, to cook with love even when love was in short supply. Lily perched on a stool, narrating everything Mara did with breathless enthusiasm. Look, Papa, she peels potatoes real fast and she's singing. Are you singing? That's a pretty song. Is it in Indian? Can you teach me? Lily, let Miss Keaton work in peace, Cole said, but Mara shook her head. It's fine. It's a working song my mother taught me. The words are Cheyenne. They're about giving thanks to the earth for providing food, for sustaining us. She hesitated, then added, I could teach you, if your father doesn't mind. Cole met her eyes across the kitchen. In his gaze, she saw caution warring with something else. Maybe curiosity, maybe the recognition that his daughter needed more than he could give her alone. I don't mind, he said finally. Sarah always said children should learn about different people, different ways. She would have liked that. So Mara taught Lily the simple syllables while she cooked, and the little girl's voice rising in Cheyenne filled the kitchen with something that felt almost like magic. Cole listened without comment, but Mara caught him watching them with an expression she couldn't quite read, part wonder, part grief, part something that might have been hope. The stew came together slowly, filling the house with scents that drew them all to the table like moths to flame. Mara made biscuits, too, using the last of the buttermilk she found in the cold cellar, working the dough with practiced hands until it was soft and light. When she finally set the food on the table, she held her breath, waiting for their judgment. Lily took one bite and her eyes went wide. Papa, she whispered, Papa, it tastes like Mama's cooking. Not exactly the same, but good like that. Like food that loves you back. Cole said nothing for a long moment, staring at his plate. Then he picked up his fork and took a bite, and another. And Mara watched his shoulders drop as tension she hadn't realized he was carrying finally released its grip. Thank you, he said roughly. You have no idea, thank you. They ate in comfortable silence, and Mara felt something unfamiliar stirring in her chest. Not just relief at having done well, not just satisfaction at a job properly completed. Something warmer than that. Something that felt dangerously close to belonging. After dinner, Cole insisted on cleaning up while Mara got Lily ready for bed, a task that involved significantly more negotiation than Mara had anticipated. But I'm not tired, Lily protested, even as she yawned wide enough to swallow the moon. I want to stay up and talk more with Miss Keaton. We didn't even finish teaching her all the words to the song. Tomorrow, Mara promised, helping the little girl into a flannel nightgown that was getting too small. We'll have tomorrow, and the day after that, and many more days. I'm not going anywhere. You promise? Lily's eyes were suddenly serious, almost frightened. You won't leave like Mama did? The question hit Mara like a physical blow. She knelt beside the bed, taking both of Lily's small hands in hers. Your Mama didn't want to leave you, sweetheart. I'm sure of that. Sometimes people leave even when they don't want to, when something happens that nobody can control. Papa says Mama's in heaven now, watching over us. Do you believe in heaven? Mara thought about her mother, about Cheyenne beliefs in the spirit world that lived alongside the Christian heaven she'd learned about in mission schools. I believe that people we love never really leave us. They stay in our hearts, in our memories. They stay in the songs they taught us, and the love they gave us. Like your mama, the one who taught you the cooking song? Yes, like my mama. Lily seemed satisfied with this answer. She snuggled deeper into her blankets, clutching a worn cloth doll. Will you teach me more songs tomorrow? And can we make bread? Mama used to let me help make bread. I wasn't very good at it, but she said practice makes better. We can do all of that, Mara assured her. Now sleep, little one. Dream good dreams. She was halfway to the door when Lily's voice stopped her. Miss Keaton, I'm real glad Papa found you. You're like a present from Mama. That's what I think. I think Mama sent you to help us not be so sad all the time. Mara's throat tightened. She couldn't speak, could only nod before slipping from the room. In the hallway, she leaned against the wall and pressed a hand to her chest, feeling her heart beat hard against her ribs. A present from Mama. A gift to ease their grief. What would it be like, she wondered, to be wanted like that? To be seen not as a burden or a compromise, but as something precious, something needed. She asleep? Mara jumped. Cole stood at the bottom of the stairs, lamplight casting shadows across his face. She couldn't read his expression. Almost, she managed. She's a special child, Cole. You and your wife did something right. Sarah did something right. He gestured helplessly. I just try not to ruin it. He paused, then added, Coffee? I figure we should talk about expectations, routines. Make sure we're clear on how this arrangement works. They sat at the kitchen table with steaming mugs between them, the house settling into nighttime quiet around them. Outside, wind rattled the windows and Bear whined in his sleep. Inside, lamplight made the shadows dance. I want to be clear about something, Cole said, his hands wrapped around his mug. When I offered you this position, I meant what I said. This is room and board in exchange for help. Nothing more. I'm not looking for a wife, Miss Keaton. I'm not looking for anything beyond what I stated. I need to know you understand that. His bluntness should have stung, but instead Mara felt oddly relieved. At least he was honest. At least there would be no false promises, no expectations she couldn't meet. I understand perfectly. I'm not looking for a husband either, Mr. Harrow. I've had quite enough of that particular disappointment. Something flickered in his eyes, sympathy, perhaps. The 4 cities Lily mentioned, 4 men who couldn't see past. He gestured vaguely at her face. 4 men who saw exactly what I am and decided it was too high a price to pay, Mara corrected. I don't blame them. Society has rules about these things. I just wish they'd been honest sooner before I'd traveled so far, hoped so much. Cole was quiet for a moment, studying her with that unreadable expression. My wife, he said finally, was the daughter of a freed slave and an Irish immigrant. Her skin was darker than yours. When we married, half the town stopped speaking to us. The other half just whispered behind our backs. Mara stared at him, understanding dawning. That's why you didn't, when you saw me this morning, I didn't see a problem, he finished. I saw a woman who needed help. Same as I'd see any person who needed help. Sarah taught me that. Taught this whole stubborn town that a person's worth isn't determined by their blood or their skin. His voice roughened. Though it cost her dearly, the stress, the constant judgment, the way people treated her like she was less than human, even though she had more grace and goodness in her little finger than most of them had in their whole bodies. Is that what... Mara couldn't finish the question, but Cole understood. No. She died in childbirth, she and the baby both. He stared into his coffee, his jaw working. Tried for years to give Lily a brother or sister, finally got pregnant again last spring. Everything seemed fine until it wasn't. The midwife came, but there was too much bleeding, too many complications. I held her hand and watched her die, and there was nothing I could do. I'm so sorry, Mara whispered, inadequate words for catastrophic loss. It's not your burden to carry. I only mention it so you understand. This house has seen grief. Lily's seen too much grief for such a small soul. What she needs now is stability, routine. Someone who can give her the kind of mothering I can't provide, no matter how hard I try. He met Mara's eyes directly. Can you do that? Can you be that for her, at least while you're here? Could she? Mara thought about Lily's hand in hers, those blue eyes seeing a lost princess instead of a half-breed nobody wanted. She thought about the little girl begging her to stay, calling her a present from her mama, believing with absolute conviction that Mara belonged here. Yes, she said. I can be that for her. Good. Cole nodded once, businesslike. Then here's how we'll work it. You handle the house, cooking, cleaning, mending, whatever needs doing. Look after Lily during the day while I'm working the ranch. I'll handle everything outside. Animals, repairs, the heavy labor. We'll eat together as a family because Lily needs that structure, but otherwise we keep to our own spaces. Understood? Understood. One more thing. His voice dropped lower. People in town are going to talk. They're going to make assumptions about us, about why a single woman is living in my house. I can't control what they think, but I need you to know. I'll do everything in my power to protect your reputation. As much as I can, anyway. Mara almost laughed at that. My reputation was destroyed the moment I was born to an Indian mother and a white father who couldn't be bothered to marry her. Whatever people think about me, it can't be worse than what I've already heard. Maybe not. But Sarah taught me that everyone deserves to be treated with dignity. So that's what I'll do. Treat you with dignity, demand that my daughter does the same, and to hell with anyone who has a problem with it. There was steel beneath his exhaustion, Mara realized, a core of honor that grief hadn't managed to break. This man had loved his wife fiercely, was raising his daughter with that same fierce love, and apparently extended that protection to strangers who stumbled into his life. Thank you, she said softly, for this chance, for seeing me as a person instead of a problem. Thank you for making my daughter smile again. I'd almost forgotten what that looked like. He stood draining his coffee. You should rest. Tomorrow starts early on a ranch. Dawn comes whether you're ready or not. After he left, Mara sat alone in the kitchen, listening to the house breathe around her. Somewhere above, Lily slept. Down the hall, Cole moved through his evening routine. Outside, the wind sang winter songs. And here in this warm kitchen, surrounded by the lingering sense of dinner, Mara felt something she hadn't felt in 10 years of searching. She felt like maybe, possibly, she'd found a place where she could stop running. The days that followed developed a rhythm that surprised Mara with its sweetness. She woke before dawn to stoke the fire and start breakfast. Cole came down shortly after, his hair damp from washing, smelling of soap and snow. They'd exchange quiet good mornings over coffee while Lily slept upstairs, these early moments becoming a ritual neither acknowledged, but both seemed to need. Proof that another night had passed, another day had arrived, that they were both still standing. Then Lily would tumble downstairs in a whirlwind of energy and enthusiasm, and the house would wake fully to life. Breakfast, dishes, lessons at the kitchen table while Cole worked outside. Mara taught Lily to read better, to cipher numbers, to identify herbs and their uses. Lily taught Mara about the ranch, about every horse's personality and every chicken's name, about secret places to find birds' nests and the best spots for wildflowers in spring. Mama used to take me on walks every afternoon, Lily confided one morning while they kneaded bread dough together. Even in winter, she said being inside too much makes the soul shrink. Your mama was a wise woman, Mara said. Should we continue that tradition? Take a walk each day? Lily's face lit like sunrise. Could we? Papa says it's too cold, but I promise I bundle up real good. So they walked, bundled in coats and scarves, tramping through snow to explore the winter-quiet ranch. Lily chattered constantly, pointing out landmarks, telling stories about her mother with the matter-of-fact acceptance of a child who knew death was permanent but hadn't quite processed its weight. Mara listened, learning about Sarah Harrow through her daughter's memories. A woman who sang while she worked, who never turned away a person in need, who believed the world was made better by small kindnesses repeated every day. You're like her, Lily announced one afternoon as they watched chickens scratch in the snow. Not the same, but similar. Both pretty, both nice, both make Papa less sad. Oh, I don't think I make your Papa less sad, sweetheart. He barely speaks to me. That's 'cause talking makes him remember, and remembering hurts. But I see him watching you sometimes when you're cooking or singing. He looks... Lily scrunched up her face, searching for words. He looks like maybe he's remembering what it's like to have someone who makes home feel like home, instead of just a place you sleep. Out of the mouths of babes, Mara thought, though she refused to let herself dwell on it. Cole was her employer, nothing more. The fact that she'd caught herself noticing the way he moved, the rare times he smiled, the gentleness in his hands when he handled his daughter, none of that mattered. She was here temporarily. She would not make the mistake of confusing kindness with anything deeper. But in the evenings, after Lily was asleep and Mara sat by lamplight mending clothes or preparing the next day's bread, she sometimes felt Cole's presence like a weight in the room. He'd sit across from her, working on tack that needed repair or accounts that needed keeping, and they'd exist in comfortable silence. Occasionally he'd ask a question. Had she always known how to cook like this? Where had she learned about herbs? Did she miss city life? And she'd answer, carefully revealing small truths about herself while guarding the deeper wounds. He did the same, she noticed. Mentioned his boyhood in Pennsylvania, how he'd come west seeking adventure and found Sarah instead. Talked about building the ranch from nothing, about winters that tested your will to survive, about the satisfaction of working with your hands to create something lasting. Never mentioned the loneliness. Never acknowledged the grief that lurked in every corner of this house, waiting to ambush him at unexpected moments. But Mara saw it. In the way his hands would still over his work sometimes, his eyes going distant. In the locked door at the end of the upstairs hall that no one ever opened. In the way he flinched whenever Lily mentioned her mother, as if love itself had become a wound he couldn't heal. 2 weeks passed, then 3. December deepened into true winter, and Mara fell into the life of the ranch as if she'd been born to it. She discovered Sarah's long-neglected garden beneath the snow and began planning what she'd plant come spring, before reminding herself sharply that she wouldn't be here in spring, that this was temporary, that she needed to be making plans to move on. But where would she go? And why would she leave when Lily was thriving under her care, when the house had stopped feeling like a mausoleum and started feeling like a home, when Cole was beginning to trust her with more than just cooking and cleaning? She was hanging laundry one gray morning when she heard it, a child's scream, raw with terror. Mara dropped the wet sheet and ran, her heart in her throat, following the sound to the barn. She found Lily backed into a corner, sobbing hysterically, while one of the horses, a massive bay mare, reared and stamped, its eyes rolling white with panic. "Don't move," Mara commanded, her voice cutting through the chaos. She approached the horse slowly, humming her mother's calming song, the one used for frightened animals and frightened people alike. "Easy, beautiful one, easy. No one will hurt you here." The mare's ears swiveled toward her, responding to the steady tone even if she couldn't understand the words. Mara kept singing, kept moving slowly, until she could grasp the horse's halter and lead her away from the terrified child. Only then did Cole come running, alerted by the commotion. "What happened?" He scooped Lily into his arms, checking her for injuries. "She got spooked," Mara said, still calming the horse. "The mare, I mean. Something frightened her. Lily was probably just in the wrong place." "I was trying to help," Lily sobbed against her father's shoulder. "I wanted to brush her like you showed me, Papa, but she got scared and I got scared and—" "Shh, you're all right now." Cole's eyes met Mara's over his daughter's head, and in them she saw gratitude mixed with something else, something that looked almost like wonder. "Thank you. If you hadn't—" "But I did." Mara finished settling the mare, then turned to them both. "Lily, sweet girl, you can't approach the horses when your papa or I aren't here. They're big animals. Even when they don't mean to hurt you, they can. Understand?" Lily nodded miserably, then reached out one hand toward Mara. "Will you hug me too? I was real scared." Mara's heart cracked open. She moved to them, and Cole shifted Lily so the little girl could wrap her arms around Mara's neck while still clinging to her father. For a moment they stood there, the three of them, tangled together in relief and fading fear. It felt like a family. It felt dangerous. It felt like everything Mara had ever wanted and nothing she deserved to keep. That night, after Lily was finally settled, her fear transformed into excitement about the adventure she'd had. Cole knocked on Mara's door. "Come in," she called, setting aside the mending. He stood in her doorway, firelight from the hallway behind him, his face in shadow. "I wanted to thank you properly. For this morning, you probably saved Lily's life." "I'm sure it wasn't that serious." "It was." His voice was flat with certainty. That mare weighs over 1,000 pounds. If she'd panicked completely, if she'd trampled, he stopped, his throat working. You didn't hesitate. You knew exactly what to do. Where did you learn that? Mara shrugged. My mother's people. Horses are sacred to the Cheyenne. We're taught from childhood how to speak to them, calm them, understand them. Your mother taught you well. He was quiet for a moment, then added, Sarah would have liked you. She believes strongly in learning from different peoples, different ways of knowing the world. She used to say that wisdom doesn't belong to any one group, that every culture has truths worth knowing. It was the first time he'd spoken his wife's name to her directly, without pain visibly tearing through him. Mara chose her words carefully. She sounds like someone I would have been honored to know. She was someone everyone felt honored to know. That was her gift, making people feel seen, valued, worthy, even people society had written off. He met Mara's eyes directly, especially people society had written off. The weight of what he wasn't saying hung heavy in the small room. Mara understood that he was drawing a parallel, comparing her to his beloved wife in some way that made her both terrified and desperately hopeful. Cole, she said softly, I'm not her. I can't be her. I can only be myself, and I'm not sure that's enough. Maybe it doesn't need to be enough, he said. Maybe it just needs to be real. Then he was gone, leaving Mara alone with her racing heart and her dangerous, foolish hope. The next morning brought the kind of cold that turned breath to ice crystals and made the world feel brittle enough to shatter. Mara woke to find frost patterns on her window like lace made by winter's careful fingers, and when she went downstairs, Cole was already at the stove, struggling with the coffee pot. Let me, she said, taking it from his hands. Their fingers brushed in the exchange, and they both pulled back as if burned. Thanks, he muttered, stepping away. I never can get it right. Sarah always said I made it taste like mud, but she'd drink it anyway and pretend it was good. It was the most he'd said about his wife in days, and Mara noticed how the words came easier now, as if speaking Sarah's name was becoming less like swallowing glass and more like breathing. She said nothing, just made the coffee the way she'd learned he liked it, strong enough to stand a spoon in, hot enough to chase away the morning chill. They sat in their usual spots, the silence between them no longer awkward, but companionable. Outside, the world was painted in shades of gray and white, waiting for the sun to crest the mountains and set everything ablaze with winter light. I need to ride out to the north pasture today, Cole said finally. Check the fences before the next snow hits. I'll probably be gone most of the day. We'll be fine, Mara assured him. Lily and I plan to start working on Christmas decorations. She says her mother always made the house beautiful for the holiday. Cole's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. That's less than 2 weeks away. I know. Sarah loved Christmas, made a whole production out of it. I don't know if I can... Then don't, Mara said gently. Let Lily and me handle it. You don't have to do anything except show up and smile when she shows you what we've made. He looked at her for a long moment, something unreadable in his dark eyes. You're good at this. At knowing what people need even when they don't know themselves. My mother used to say that surviving meant learning to read silence louder than words. When you grow up caught between worlds, you learn to pay attention to what isn't said. That sounds lonely. It was. The admission surprised her. She hadn't meant to be so honest. But loneliness teaches you things too, like how to be grateful for small mercies, like how to recognize kindness when it appears, even in unexpected forms. Is that what this is? Cole asked quietly. Kindness in an unexpected form? Before Mara could answer, Lily thundered down the stairs in a tangle of nightgown and wild hair, launching herself at her father with the force of a small cannonball. Papa, Miss Mara, I had the best dream. I dreamed Mama came to visit and she said she was happy we weren't so sad anymore, and she said... The little girl stopped abruptly, her face falling. But I can't remember what else she said. I tried real hard to remember, but it's gone now. Cole pulled his daughter close, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. That's all right, sweetheart. Dreams are like that sometimes. Slippery as fish. But it was important, Papa. I know it was. Mara moved to them, kneeling beside Lily's chair. Maybe your heart remembers even if your head doesn't. Maybe that's enough. Lily considered this with the seriousness of a child weighing profound truths. Do you dream about your mama? Sometimes. Not as often as I'd like. What do you dream? I dream that she's teaching me songs, that she's showing me how to find healing plants in the prairie grass, how to read the sky for weather, how to be brave even when I'm frightened. Mara smiled softly. And in the dreams, I understand everything she says, all the words in her language that I forgot or never learned properly. In dreams, I can speak perfectly, and she's so proud of me. Lily's small hand found Mara's. I bet she's proud of you even when you're awake. I bet she watches you from heaven and thinks you're doing real good. The simple faith in those words made Mara's throat tight. Thank you, sweet girl. That's a kind thing to say. After breakfast, Cole bundled up in layers of wool and leather, preparing for his day in the bitter cold. Mara packed him food and a thermos of hot coffee, ignoring his protests that he could manage fine without. You'll work better if you're not starving and frozen, she said firmly, pressing the bundle into his hands. Don't be foolish about it. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe, at being cared for. Yes, ma'am, he said, and the corner of his mouth twitched in what might have been the ghost of a smile. At the door, he paused. Mara, Miss Keaton, I meant what I said last night, about things being real. I just wanted you to know that. Then he was gone, leaving Mara standing in the doorway with her heart beating too fast and her mind racing with possibilities she knew better than to entertain. Miss Mara? Lily tugged at her sleeve. Why does your face look all funny? Funny how? Like you're happy and scared at the same time, like when Papa took me on my first horse ride and I wanted to laugh and cry both. Out of the mouths of babes, indeed. Come on, Mara said, deflecting with practiced ease. Let's start on those Christmas decorations. Show me where your mother kept the supplies. Lily led her to a storage closet off the kitchen, chattering excitedly about previous Christmases. Mama always made paper chains and we'd string popcorn and Papa would cut down a tree from the north woods and we'd decorate it together and sing carols and make cookies and… She stopped, her face crumpling. But we can't do all that this year because Mama's gone. We can do whatever you want to do, Mara said softly. We can do all of it, or none of it, or make up new traditions entirely. There's no right way to miss someone, Lily, and there's no wrong way to keep living even though you miss them. Really? Really? Your mama wouldn't want you to stop celebrating Christmas just because she can't be here. She'd want you to find joy where you can find it, to make new memories even while you hold on to the old ones. Lily thought about this, her small face serious. Miss Mara, do you think Mama would like you? The question caught Mara off guard. I don't know, sweetheart. I hope so. I think she would. I think she'd say you have kind eyes and a good heart, 'cause that's what she always said about people she liked. Lily pulled out a box of colored paper, already planning their decorations. And I think she'd be happy that Papa smiles sometimes now. He didn't smile at all after she died, not for the longest time. But he smiles at you, not big smiles, but little ones. Like maybe he's remembering how. Mara didn't know what to say to that, so she said nothing. She just helped Lily cut paper into strips, showed her how to loop them into chains using flour paste, and let the little girl's enthusiasm fill the spaces where words would have been inadequate. They worked through the morning, transforming the plain house into something festive. Paper chains draped over doorways. Pine cones collected from their walks, painted white with flour paste to look like they were dusted with snow. Stars cut from old newspapers and hung in the windows to catch the light. Lily sang carols in her high, clear voice, making up words when she couldn't remember the right ones. And Mara found herself humming along, adding harmonies her mother had taught her. You have a pretty voice, Lily said during a break for lunch. Prettier than mine. Your voice is perfect exactly as it is. Will you teach me more Cheyenne songs? The ones your mama taught you? So Mara did, sharing the simple melodies meant for children, the ones about animals and seasons and the great circle of life that held everything together. Lily absorbed them like a sponge, her young mind quick and eager. And as they sang together, Mara felt something shift inside her chest. A wall she'd built around her heritage, around the part of herself she'd learned to hide, beginning to crumble. It was late afternoon, the sun already sinking toward the western peaks, when they heard it. A sound like thunder but wrong. too sustained, too purposeful. Mara went to the window and felt her blood turn to ice. Smoke. Black smoke rising from the direction Cole had gone. The north pasture. "Stay here," she commanded Lily, her voice sharp enough to brook no argument. "Do not leave this house for any reason. Do you understand me?" Lily's eyes went wide with fear. "What's wrong? Where's Papa?" "I don't know. That's what I'm going to find out, but I need you to promise me you'll stay here, stay safe. Can you do that?" "I promise." Lily's voice trembled. "But Miss Mara, if something bad happened, then I'll handle it." Mara grabbed her coat, her mind already racing. Fire on a winter day made no sense unless something had gone catastrophically wrong. A lightning strike? Impossible in this weather. An accident? But what kind? She ran toward the smoke, her boots slipping in the snow, her lungs burning with cold air and fear. The north pasture was nearly a mile from the house, and every step felt like an eternity. What if Cole was hurt? What if he was trapped? What if... She crested a rise and saw it. The old line shack, a small shelter used for overnight stays during summer grazing season, fully engulfed in flames, and near it, Cole's horse standing riderless, reins trailing in the snow. "Cole!" Mara screamed his name into the wind. "Cole, where are you?" A sound faint beneath the roar of fire. Mara ran toward it, circling the burning structure, and found him lying in the snow 20 feet from the flames. His face was pale, his leg bent at an angle that made her stomach turn, and when she dropped to her knees beside him, she saw blood staining the snow beneath his head. "Cole? Cole? Can you hear me?" She pressed her fingers to his throat, felt the pulse there, weak but steady. "Thank God. Thank God you're alive." His eyes fluttered open, unfocused and glassy. "Mara?" His voice was barely a whisper. "What are you doing here?" "Saving your stubborn life, apparently. What happened?" "Shack must have had damage I didn't know about. Went inside to check supplies. Roof gave way, knocked me out for a minute. When I came to, whole thing was on fire. Tried to get out, but my leg..." He winced, his face going even paler. "Lily? Is Lily safe?" "She's home. She's fine. Don't try to move. You've broken your leg, maybe worse." Mara looked around desperately. His horse had wandered closer, drawn by familiar voices. "Can you ride if I get you on your horse?" "Don't have much choice, do I?" He tried to smile, but it came out as more of a grimace. "This is bad timing. Lily needs me. The ranch needs... What the ranch needs is for you to stay alive. So shut up and let me help you." Getting a man with a broken leg onto a horse was like trying to move a mountain with your bare hands, but somehow Mara managed it. Cole passed out twice from the pain, and each time her heart stopped until he came back, gasping and gray-faced but conscious. She tied him to the saddle with his own rope, not trusting him to stay upright, then took the reins and began the long, agonizing walk back to the house. The sun was setting by the time they reached the yard. Lily burst from the house at their approach, took one look at her father slumped over the horse's neck, and burst into tears. "Papa! Papa, what happened? Is he going to die like Mama?" "No." Mara made her voice hard, certain, allowing no room for doubt. "No, he's not going to die. But I need you to be very brave right now, Lily. Can you do that? Can you help me?" Lily scrubbed at her tears with both fists, then nodded. "What do you need?" "Go inside and build up the fire as hot as you can get it. Then heat water. As much as we can carry. Find every clean sheet and towel in the house. Can you do all that?" "Yes, ma'am." The little girl ran, suddenly steady with purpose. Getting Cole off the horse and into the house was harder than getting him on had been. He was barely conscious, his weight dead against Mara as she half-dragged, half-carried him to the kitchen table. It was the only surface strong enough and large enough to hold him while she worked. She cut away his pants leg with kitchen shears, trying not to react to what she found. The break was bad but clean, the bone not protruding through skin. That was something. But the head wound worried her more, a gash along his temple that had finally stopped bleeding, and the signs of concussion were clear in his unfocused eyes and disoriented words. "Lily." Mara kept her voice calm despite her racing heart. "I need you to ride to town and fetch the doctor." "But it's dark. Papa says I can't ride in the dark." Your papa isn't able to make that decision right now. The doctor needs to know what happened. Can you remember how to get to town? I think so, but Miss Mara, I'm scared. Mara took the little girl's face in both hands. I know, but your papa needs help. I can't give him alone. You're the bravest girl I know, Lily Harrow. You can do this. Something in Mara's voice, in her absolute certainty, steadied the child. Lily squared her small shoulders. Saddle Bell for me. She knows the way, even in the dark. While Lily dressed warmly, Mara saddled the gentlest mare, gave the child instructions to find Dr. Patterson and bring him back immediately, then watched her daughter ride into the darkness with her heart in her throat. Alone with Cole, Mara finally let herself feel the full weight of terror. He was unconscious again, his breathing shallow, his skin clammy with shock. She'd seen injuries before, had helped her mother treat trappers and travelers who'd met with accidents on the prairie. But this was different. This was Cole, whose rare smiles made her heart skip. Cole, who'd given her shelter when no one else would. Cole, who couldn't die because Lily had already lost too much and Mara had just started to hope, and the universe couldn't be cruel enough to take him now. She washed his wounds with gentle hands, singing her mother's healing songs under her breath. She splinted his leg using boards from the kindling box and strips of clean sheet. She bathed his face with cool water and whispered prayers in 2 languages, pleading with any god who might listen. "Don't you dare die on me," she told his unconscious form, her voice breaking. "Don't you dare leave that little girl without a father. She's been through enough. She deserves to keep you, and I—" She stopped, shocked by what she'd almost said. "Just don't die, please." His hand twitched against the table, and she grabbed it without thinking, holding tight as if she could anchor him to life through sheer force of will. His fingers curled weakly around hers, and even unconscious, even broken, he held on. Mara lost track of time. She moved between tending Cole and watching the window for any sign of Lily's return. She kept the fire blazing, kept water hot, kept talking to Cole, even though he couldn't hear her, filling the terrible silence with words that spilled out unguarded. She told him about her mother, about growing up caught between worlds with no safe place to land. She told him about the mission school where they'd tried to beat the Indian out of her, about the white towns where her skin marked her as savage, about the Cheyenne camps where her pale eyes made her suspect. She told him about the 4 cities and 4 rejections, about arriving in Riverbend with nothing left but desperation and prayer. "And then Lily grabbed my hand," she whispered, "and everything changed. You changed it. You looked at me and saw a person instead of a problem. Do you know how rare that is? Do you know what that meant to me?" His eyelids fluttered, but didn't open. His breathing stayed shallow but steady, and Mara held his hand and kept talking, as if her voice alone could keep him tethered to the world. It was full dark, hours later, when she finally heard hoofbeats. Lily burst through the door first, followed by a gray-haired man with a medical bag and an expression of grim determination. "Dr. Patterson," Mara said, stepping back from the table. "Thank God. Let's see what we have here." The doctor's examination was thorough and professional. He checked the head wound, tested Cole's reflexes, examined the splinted leg with a practiced eye. "You did good work, Miss Keaton." Mara Keaton. "You did good work, Miss Keaton. Clean splint, proper washing of wounds. You've had medical training?" "My mother was a healer. Cheyenne medicine. I learned what I could." If the doctor had opinions about Indian medicine, he kept them to himself. "Well, your Indian medicine probably saved this man's life. The leg will heal if we keep it set proper. The concussion worries me more. He needs to wake up within the next few hours, and he needs watching through the night. Someone to wake him every hour. Check that he can focus his eyes. Speak clearly. Can you do that?" "Yes." "I'll check back tomorrow. For now, keep him warm, keep him still, and for God's sake, don't let him try to walk on that leg." Patterson closed his bag, then studied Mara with shrewd eyes. "You're the mail order bride who got left at the station." It wasn't a question. Of course, the whole town knew. Of course, gossip had traveled faster than any horse could carry it. "I am," Mara said, lifting her chin. "And now you're living here, caring for Cole Harrow's child. His home." The doctor's voice held no judgment, just curiosity. "That's quite a turn of fortune." "I work for room and board, nothing more. Mr. Harrow needed help with his daughter and household. I needed—" She stopped, not wanting to admit how desperate she'd been. You needed someone to see you as human instead of a commodity. Dr. Patterson surprised her with his directness. Cole Harrow's a good man. Lost too much too young. If you're helping him and that little girl find their way again, then I'd say you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Don't let the town gossips tell you different. After he left, Lily crept close to her father's side. Is he really going to be okay? The doctor said yes, but it will take time. Broken bones need weeks to heal, and he'll need to rest more than he's used to. Who's going to take care of the ranch? Who's going to feed the animals and check the fences and do all the things Papa does? Mara looked at the small girl whose world had nearly shattered again, at the man lying broken on the table, at this home she'd stumbled into like a lost soul finding unexpected sanctuary. She thought about running, about how easy it would be to pack her bag and disappear before things got more complicated, before her heart got more tangled in lives that weren't hers to claim. But then she thought about Lily's hand in hers, about Cole's rare smiles, about the way this house had started to feel like the home she'd searched for all her life. And she made a choice that terrified her, that went against every lesson she'd learned about protecting herself, about not hoping for things she couldn't keep. I will, she said firmly. I'll take care of everything until your papa can do it himself. The animals, the house, you, all of it. You promise? You promise you won't leave? Mara pulled the little girl close, pressing a kiss to her tangled hair. I promise, sweet girl. I'm not going anywhere. Cole stirred on the table, his eyes finally opening and finding focus. Mara? His voice was rough but clear. What happened? Where? He tried to sit up and gasped at the pain in his leg. Don't move, you stubborn man. You broke your leg when the line shack collapsed. Mara gently pushed him back down, checking his eyes the way the doctor had shown her. Clear and focused now, no longer glassy with concussion. Relief flooded through her so powerfully, it left her dizzy. How do you feel? Like I got trampled by my own horse. He managed a weak smile, then his eyes found his daughter. Lily, are you all right? I rode to town in the dark to get the doctor, Lily announced proudly. All by myself, just like a grown-up. Cole's eyes widened, then moved to Mara with something like accusation. You let her ride alone in the dark? You were dying, Mara said flatly, or close enough to it. She was brave when she needed to be brave. You should be proud of her. The fight went out of him as quickly as it had flared. I am proud. God, Lily, you scared me. When I woke up and realized I couldn't get back to you. Miss Mara took care of everything, Lily said confidently. She always knows what to do. Cole's eyes met Mara's again, and in them she saw gratitude, yes, but also something deeper, something that looked like wonder and fear mixed together in equal measure. Seems I owe you my life. You owe me nothing. This is what people do when they care about each other. The words came out before Mara could stop them, too honest, too revealing. She quickly turned away, busying herself with unnecessary tasks. We should get you to bed. The doctor said you need rest. Getting Cole upstairs was an ordeal that left all three of them exhausted, and Cole white-faced with pain. But eventually he was settled in his room, propped on pillows, his broken leg elevated. Lily curled up next to him carefully, desperate for the reassurance of his breathing, his presence, his continued existence. Sing Papa a song, she begged Mara. One of Mama's songs that makes everything better. So Mara sat in the chair by Cole's bed and sang, not a Cheyenne healing song this time, but an old hymn her mother had learned at the mission, about valleys and shadows and fears turned to faith. Her voice was soft in the lamplight, carrying comfort into the corners where grief and fear liked to hide. When Lily finally fell asleep, still clutching her father's hand, Cole spoke quietly. You didn't have to stay. After finding me like that, after seeing how dangerous ranch life can be, you could have left. No one would have blamed you. I made a promise to your daughter, and to myself. Mara met his eyes in the dim light. I'm tired of running, Cole. I'm tired of being someone people send away. Maybe I'm being foolish, but for once in my life I want to stay somewhere. I want to fight for something instead of just surviving loss after loss. Even though you don't know how long this can last, even though I can't promise you anything beyond what we already agreed, especially because of that. Because for once, I'm choosing where I stand instead of waiting for someone else to decide if I'm worth keeping. She stood, suddenly needing distance from the intensity in his gaze. Get some rest. I'll check on you in an hour like the doctor ordered. Mara. Her name stopped her at the door. Thank you. For everything. For being here. For being you. She didn't trust herself to respond. She just nodded and fled, leaving him in the darkness with his daughter curled against his side. Downstairs, alone in the kitchen, Mara finally let herself shake. Let herself feel the terror that had been stalking her since she'd first seen that smoke, since she'd found Cole broken in the snow, since she'd realized that losing him would hurt in ways she hadn't allowed herself to acknowledge. She'd fallen in love with this place, with this child. And God help her, with this man who barely spoke but whose rare smiles felt like sunrise after endless night. It was dangerous. It was foolish. It was everything she'd sworn not to do after 4 cities and 4 rejections had taught her that hoping was just another word for inevitable heartbreak. But as she climbed the stairs to check on Cole that first time and saw him sleeping peacefully with Lily tucked against his shoulder, and felt her heart swell with something that was absolutely terrifyingly love, Mara knew there was no going back. She'd stopped running the moment Lily had grabbed her hand and called her a lost princess. She'd started belonging the moment Cole had offered her shelter and dignity when she'd had neither, and she'd given away her heart somewhere between cooking dinners and singing songs and learning that family didn't always mean blood. Whatever came next, whatever heartbreak or happiness weighted down this uncertain road, she was staying. For better or worse, Mara Keaton had finally found her place. Now she just had to figure out if that place had room for all of her. Not just the useful parts, not just the parts that served others' needs, but all the messy, complicated, mixed heritage, twice rejected, still hoping pieces of who she was. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the windows and howling through the eaves like something wild and hungry. Mara stood at Cole's bedroom door for a moment, watching the steady rise and fall of his chest, the way Lily's small hand remained clasped in his, even in sleep. This was what safety looked like, she thought. This was what home felt like. Not a place, but a collection of people you'd give anything to protect. She turned away and went back downstairs to begin the longest night of her life. The hours crawled past with agonizing slowness. Every 60 minutes, Mara climbed the stairs to wake Cole, to check his eyes and his speech, to make sure he hadn't slipped away into the kind of sleep you didn't wake from. Each time he roused with difficulty, answered her questions with increasing irritation, and fell back asleep the moment she left. By the 4th check, he was coherent enough to be properly annoyed. "Stop fussing over me like a mother hen," he grumbled when she appeared yet again. "I'm fine." The doctor said, "The doctor isn't the one being woken up every hour. I know my own body, Mara. I'm tired and sore, but I'm not dying. You don't get to decide that. Not tonight." She held the lamp higher, studying his face for any sign of confusion or disorientation. "Tell me what day it is." "It's the middle of the damn night is what it is." "Cole," he sighed, recognizing defeat. "December 13th. We're 2 weeks from Christmas. Lily's been planning decorations with you. The north pasture needs fence repairs that I apparently won't be doing anytime soon. Satisfied?" "For now." Mara turned to leave, then paused. "For what it's worth, you're a terrible patient. And you're a tyrant with a gentle face. We're quite a pair." The words hung in the air between them, casual, but weighted with meaning neither was ready to examine. Mara fled before she could say something foolish, something that would reveal just how much those words, quite a pair, had made her treacherous heart skip. Dawn finally broke over the mountains, painting the snow-covered world in shades of rose and gold. Mara stood at the kitchen window, exhausted but relieved, watching the light chase away the shadows. Cole had made it through the night. The worst was over. Or so she thought, until Lily came downstairs with red-rimmed eyes and a question that shattered Mara's fragile composure. "What if Papa can't work no more? What if his leg don't heal right, and we lose the ranch and we got nowhere to go?" "Your father is strong," Mara said, pulling the child into her arms. "He'll heal. And even if it takes time, we'll manage. I'll manage." "But you don't know how to do ranch work. You said so yourself." "Then I'll learn. People have been working ranches since long before I was born. If they can figure it out, so can I." Mara tilted Lily's chin up, meeting those worried blue eyes. Your papa gave me shelter when I had nothing. The least I can do is make sure his home is still standing when he's well enough to take it back." "You really mean it? You're not just saying nice things to make me feel better?" "I really mean it." And as Mara said the words, she felt the weight of them settle onto her shoulders like a yoke. She had no idea how to run a ranch. She'd spent her life in cities and towns, the daughter of a seamstress who'd taught her domestic skills, but nothing about livestock or fence mending or the 1,000 tasks that kept a ranch alive through brutal winter. But she'd figure it out. She had to. After breakfast, which Cole barely touched, his body still recovering from shock, Mara bundled up in every warm thing she could find and ventured out to assess her new domain. The chickens needed feeding and their water needed thawing. The horses needed hay and fresh water too. The cow needed milking. And those were just the urgent tasks, the ones that couldn't wait even a day. Bear trotted alongside her, his shaggy presence oddly comforting as she fumbled through chores she only half understood. The chickens pecked at her boots impatiently while she scattered their feed with hands clumsy in thick gloves. The horses eyed her with suspicion, clearly noting that she was not Cole in finding her lacking. The cow, a patient brown-eyed creature named Bessie, stood stoically while Mara attempted to milk her with technique learned from watching rather than doing. "I know I'm not very good at this yet," Mara told the cow, resting her forehead against the warm flank. "But I'm trying. That has to count for something." It took her 3 times as long as it would have taken Cole, but eventually the animals were fed and watered and settled. Mara returned to the house with frozen fingers and aching muscles, only to find Lily hovering anxiously in the kitchen. "Papa's asking for you. He says his leg hurts real bad and he needs you to check the splint." Cole was sitting up in bed when Mara entered, his face tight with pain. "I think it shifted when I moved wrong. Can you—" He gestured helplessly at his leg. Mara carefully unwrapped the splint, checking the alignment with gentle fingers. The break was still properly set, but the swelling had increased overnight. She rewrapped it more loosely, then fetched willow bark tea, a remedy her mother had sworn by for pain. "Drink this. It'll help." Cole accepted the cup without argument, which told Mara exactly how much pain he was actually in. "How are the animals?" "Fed and watered. It took me forever and I probably did everything wrong, but no one died." "That's a good first day then." He managed a weak smile. "Most ranchers start by accidentally killing at least one chicken." "The day's not over yet." They sat in companionable silence while Cole drank his tea. Outside, snow began to fall again, soft and insistent. Mara watched it through the window, thinking about all the work still waiting, fences to check, wood to split, 100 tasks she didn't know how to do. "You don't have to do this," Cole said quietly, following her gaze. "The ranch can survive a few weeks of minimal care. Just keep the animals alive and let everything else wait until I'm up and about. And if it takes longer than a few weeks, if your leg needs more time—" Mara met his eyes. "I meant what I told Lily. I'm going to keep this place running until you can take it back. Not because I know what I'm doing, but because it's the right thing to do." "Why?" The question came out raw, almost desperate. "Why would you do that for us? We're nothing to you, strangers you stumbled into by accident." "You're not strangers anymore." The admission cost her something, but Mara gave it freely. "You're the first people in 10 years who made me feel like I might actually belong somewhere. The first place that felt like it could be home. So yes, I'm going to fight to keep it standing, even if I don't know what I'm doing, because that's what family does. And you—" She stopped, the words catching in her throat. "We what?" Cole's voice was soft, his eyes intent on her face. "You feel like family, both of you. And I know that's probably not what you want to hear. I know I'm overstepping, but I can't help it. I can't help caring about you, about Lily, about this place. So I'm staying, and I'm fighting, and you'll just have to accept it." Cole was silent for so long that Mara began to regret her honesty. But then he reached out and caught her hand, his grip warm and firm despite his weakness. "Sarah used to say that family isn't always blood. That sometimes the universe sends people into our lives exactly when we need them. And recognizing that, accepting it, takes more courage than pushing them away." His thumb brushed across her knuckles, a gesture so intimate it made her breath catch. "I think she'd like knowing that you're here, that Lily has someone who cares about her that much, that I have—" He stopped, seeming to struggle with his words. that I'm not alone in this anymore. Before Mara could respond, Lily burst into the room carrying a tray laden with lunch. I made sandwiches. They're a little squished because Bear tried to steal one, but they're still good. The moment broke, but its echo lingered in the air between them, in the way Cole's eyes held hers just a moment too long, in the warmth still tingling in her fingers where he'd touched her. The days that followed fell into an exhausting rhythm. Mara rose before dawn to tend the animals, learning through trial and error what needed doing and when. She discovered that ranch work was equal parts skill and endurance, that winter made everything harder, that animals had their own languages she had to learn. The horses taught her about patience and respect. The chickens taught her about persistence and chaos. Bessie the cow taught her that gentleness mattered more than technique. Lily helped where she could, her small presence making the work feel less like drudgery and more like adventure. They collected eggs together, singing Cheyenne songs that scared the chickens into laying extra. They hauled hay to the horses while Lily told elaborate stories about each animal's secret life. They split kindling, or rather, Mara split while Lily stacked and narrated, until their faces burned with cold and their lungs ached with frozen air. You're getting good at this, Lily announced one afternoon while Mara struggled to replace a broken board in the chicken coop. Mama always said practice makes you better, not perfect. And you're definitely getting better. I'm getting blisters and bruises, that's what I'm getting? But Mara smiled despite her aching muscles. There was satisfaction in this work, in seeing immediate results from physical labor, in knowing the animals depended on her, and she hadn't let them down. Cole watched from his window sometimes, when his leg pained him too much to sleep. Mara would catch glimpses of him there, his face tight with frustration at his forced inactivity. She knew it cost him to let her take over his responsibilities, that every day trapped in bed felt like failure to a man who'd built his life on hard work and self-reliance. On the 5th day, she found him attempting to navigate the stairs, leaning heavily on a makeshift crutch. "What do you think you're doing?" Mara demanded, rushing to block his path. "Going downstairs. I'm going mad sitting in that room." "You're going to fall and break your other leg is what you're going to do." "Wait." She positioned herself under his arm, taking some of his weight. "At least let me help you, you stubborn man." They made it down one agonizing step at a time. Cole's jaw clenched against pain he refused to voice. By the time they reached the kitchen, he was pale and sweating, but there was triumph in his eyes. "See? Still alive." "Barely." Mara settled him into a chair by the stove, propping his injured leg on a stool. "If you undo all Dr. Patterson's good work because you're too proud to rest properly, I'll never forgive you." Noted, but he was smiling now, that rare expression that transformed his whole face. "Thank you for letting me feel human again instead of useless." "You're not useless. You're healing. There's a difference." Lily danced into the kitchen carrying a bundle of Christmas decorations. "Papa, you're downstairs. Does this mean we can decorate together like we used to?" Cole's smile faltered. "Lily, I don't know if—" "Please, Papa. Miss Mara and me made everything, but it's not the same without you helping. Mama always said Christmas was for families being together." The name hung in the air like a bell's echo. Sarah. The ghost at every meal, in every room, woven into every tradition and memory. Mara saw Cole flinch, saw him preparing to refuse, to retreat behind his grief. "Your papa can supervise," Mara said quickly. "He can sit right here and tell us where everything should go, what looks right, what your mama would have wanted. That way he's part of it without hurting himself." Cole met her eyes, and in his gaze she saw gratitude mixed with something that looked like fear. Fear of moving forward, fear of betraying his wife's memory by finding joy again, fear of wanting things he thought he'd lost the right to want. "All right," he said finally. "I can do that." So they decorated while snow fell outside and the fire crackled warm in the stove. Lily hung paper chains and told stories about previous Christmases, keeping her mother alive through words and memory. Cole directed operations from his chair, his voice growing stronger as he relaxed into the familiar ritual. And Mara moved between them, hanging decorations and stirring soup and feeling her heart swell with belonging she'd stopped believing possible. "Mama used to make a star for the top of the tree," Lily said, studying their collection of ornaments. "A silver star that caught the light. But Papa says we don't have a tree this year because he can't go cut one down. I could try, Mara offered. Show me where to find a good tree and I'll… No, Cole's voice was firm. It's dangerous work, even for someone who knows what they're doing. Falling trees, deep snow, and you don't know the land well enough, not worth the risk. But Papa, we always have a tree. It won't be Christmas without one. Cole's face tightened, and Mara saw him struggling between his daughter's happiness and his own limitations. She made a decision that would either save the moment or make everything worse. Then we'll make do with what we have. We'll hang decorations from the rafters instead, make the whole kitchen a Christmas tree. It'll be different from other years, but different doesn't mean wrong. Sometimes different is exactly what we need. She expected disappointment, but Lily's face lit with excitement. Like the whole room is magical, like we're living inside Christmas instead of just looking at it. Within an hour, they'd transformed the kitchen into something from a fairy tale. Paper chains looped from beam to beam. Stars hung at varying heights, catching lamplight and spinning lazy circles. Pine cones painted with flower paste dangled like ornaments. And in the center of it all, the table where they'd share meals and laughter and the slow rebuilding of a broken family. It's beautiful, Cole said quietly, his eyes suspiciously bright. Sarah would have loved this. She always said the best traditions were the ones you invented yourself. That night, after Lily was asleep and the house had settled into quiet, Cole called Mara back to the kitchen. He'd managed to hobble to the stove and was attempting to make tea with the awkward grace of a man unaccustomed to working with one good leg. Let me, Mara said, taking the kettle from his hands. I need to learn to do things for myself again. You will, but not tonight. Tonight you let someone else take care of you. They sat across from each other, tea steaming between them, while wind rattled the windows and snow piled higher against the walls. Outside was winter's fury. Inside was warmth and safety and the fragile beginning of something neither of them had names for yet. I've been thinking, Cole said, staring into his cup, about what happens after I'm healed, about this arrangement we made. Mara's heart clenched. Here it came, the conversation she'd been dreading. He was going to thank her for her help and suggest she move on, find a more permanent situation elsewhere. She braced herself for rejection, for the familiar sting of not being quite enough to keep. I've been thinking that maybe… Cole stopped, his jaw working. That maybe this doesn't have to be temporary. The arrangement, I mean. You've proven yourself invaluable here, Mara. The way you've handled everything, the way you care for Lily, the way you've kept this place running when I couldn't. I know I said this was just until you figured out what you wanted to do next, but if you wanted to stay permanently, I could pay you a proper wage. Make it a real position, housekeeper and governess both. Give you stability, security. It wasn't what she'd feared, but it also wasn't what she'd secretly hoped for. He was offering her a job, nothing more. Employment instead of belonging. A position in his household, but not in his life. Not really. That's very generous, Mara said carefully, trying to keep the disappointment from her voice. Can I think about it? Of course. I just wanted you to know you have a place here, for as long as you want it. He meant it kindly. She knew that. But kindness wasn't the same as love, and employment wasn't the same as family, no matter how much it might feel like it sometimes. After Cole had struggled back upstairs, Mara sat alone in their Christmas kitchen and allowed herself one moment of weakness. One moment to acknowledge that she'd done exactly what she'd sworn not to do. She'd fallen in love with a man who could never love her back, who saw her as useful but not essential, who offered her employment when what she wanted was belonging. 4 cities and 4 rejections should have taught her better, but apparently her heart was slower to learn than her mind. The next morning brought crisis in a different form. Lily woke burning with fever, her small body shaking with chills one moment and drenched with sweat the next. Mara felt her forehead and her stomach dropped with fear. Cole! She carried Lily downstairs, the child limp and unresponsive in her arms. Cole, something's wrong. He appeared at the top of the stairs, taking one look at his daughter's flushed face before attempting to navigate down on his crutch with terrifying speed. What happened? I don't know. She was fine yesterday, laughing and playing, and now… Mara's voice broke. Now she won't wake up properly. She just mumbles and burns. Cole's face went white. Not again. God, please, not again. Mara understood in that terrible moment what he was thinking. His wife had seemed fine until she wasn't, had been laughing one day and dying the next, and now history was repeating with his daughter. She could see him fracturing, grief and trauma overwhelming present reality. This is not that, she said firmly, gripping his arm. This is a fever, Cole. Children get fevers. It doesn't mean she's not... She couldn't say the word, couldn't give voice to that terror. Help me get her to the couch, then tell me what to do. But Cole had retreated somewhere Mara couldn't follow, his eyes distant with remembered loss. He touched Lily's face with shaking hands, and Mara realized with sinking certainty that he couldn't help. Not this time. The trauma was too fresh, the wound too raw, which meant she was on her own. Mara fell back on everything her mother had taught her: willow bark tea for fever, cool cloths for the burning skin, a poultice of herbs she'd gathered during their walks, plants she recognized from childhood teachings. She worked through the day while Lily drifted in and out of fevered sleep, mumbling words that didn't make sense, calling for her mama, for her papa, for Mara herself. I'm here, Mara whispered again and again, bathing the small face with gentle hands. I'm here, sweet girl. You're going to be fine. You're strong like your papa and brave like your mama, and you're going to fight this. Cole watched from across the room, his face haggard. Should I get the doctor? In this storm? Mara glanced at the window where wind-driven snow obscured everything beyond the porch. He'd never make it, and neither would you in your condition. We'll manage this ourselves. How can you be so calm? How can you just... His voice broke. Sarah was fine one moment and gone the next. I can't lose Lily too. I can't survive losing her. Mara wanted to comfort him, to promise everything would be fine. But she'd learned that some fears couldn't be soothed with words, that grief lived in the body as much as the mind, that trauma made people prisoners of past losses. Then help me fight, she said instead. Don't retreat into fear. Stay present. Stay with her. She needs you. Her words seemed to reach him through the fog of panic. Cole moved closer, taking his daughter's hand, and began to sing, a lullaby Mara had heard him hum sometimes, one she recognized from Lily's bedtime routine. His voice was rough with emotion, but it was there, solid and present. They worked through the night together, a tag team against fever and fear. Mara with her remedies and prayers in 2 languages. Cole with his presence and his love and his stubborn refusal to let death claim anyone else he loved. And Lily fighting her own battle in dreams and delirium, holding on. Dawn was breaking when the fever finally broke. Lily's eyes fluttered open, focused and clear for the first time in 20 hours. Papa? Her voice was weak but herself. Why are you crying? Cole let out a sound between a laugh and a sob, gathering his daughter into his arms with desperate gentleness. Because you scared me, sweetheart. You scared me so badly. But I'm okay now. Lily patted his cheek with one small hand, then reached for Mara. Miss Mara, too. She was singing songs and putting cold things on my head and telling me stories. I remember some of it, I think. She saved you, Cole said, his eyes finding Mara's over Lily's head. She saved you just like she saved me. But Mara shook her head. We saved her. Both of us. Together. The word hung in the air between them, weighted with new meaning. Together. Not employer and employee, not temporary arrangement or business transaction. Together like family, like partners, like people who'd walked through fire side by side and come out changed. Lily fell back asleep, exhausted but healing, cradled between them. And in the golden light of morning, surrounded by the Christmas decorations they'd hung together, Mara felt something shift inside her chest. Some walls she'd built around her heart developing cracks, letting in light and hope, and the terrifying possibility that maybe, just maybe, she'd found where she belonged. Cole moved Lily back to her own bed once she was strong enough, tucking the quilts around her with hands that still trembled slightly. Mara watched from the doorway, seeing how close he'd come to breaking, how near they'd all come to catastrophe. When he finally emerged from Lily's room, he looked 10 years older than he had 2 days ago. I need some air, he said roughly, reaching for his crutch. Let me help you to the porch at least. You shouldn't be... I need to do this myself, Mara. Please. She let him go, understanding that some battles a person had to fight alone. But she watched through the window as he stood on the porch, leaning heavily on his crutch, staring out at the snow-covered world as if searching for answers written in the drifts. When he came back inside an hour later, his face was raw from cold and something else. He found Mara in the kitchen preparing broth for Lily, and stood in the doorway watching her work with an expression she couldn't decipher. "We need to talk," he said finally. Mara's hand stilled over the pot. Here it came. Whatever reckoning had been building since the moment she'd arrived at this ranch. "All right." Cole lowered himself into a chair with a grimace, his injured leg clearly paining him. "When you first came here, I told you this was a business arrangement. Room and board in exchange for help. Nothing more complicated than that." "I remember." Mara kept her voice neutral, bracing herself. "I told you I wasn't looking for a wife, that I wasn't ready for anything beyond practical help, that I was just trying to keep myself and Lily afloat without drowning completely." "Yes." Each word felt like a stone in her chest. "I need you to know—" He stopped, his jaw working. "I need you to know that I was lying, to you and to myself." Mara turned to face him fully, her heart suddenly pounding. "What?" Not about needing help, that was true enough, but about not wanting more, about being content with just an arrangement. Cole met her eyes, and in them she saw fear and hope warring for dominance. "The truth is, from that very first morning when Lily grabbed your hand and refused to let go, I felt something shift, like the universe was telling me to pay attention, that something important was happening whether I was ready for it or not." "Colt, let me finish. Please. I need to say this before I lose my nerve." He took a shaking breath. "Watching you these past weeks, seeing how you care for Lily, how you threw yourself into ranch work you'd never done before, how you saved my life and then saved my daughter's life. Mara, you've brought this house back to life. Not just the practical things, though God knows we needed those, but the heart of it, the warmth, the feeling that this is a home, instead of just a place where two broken people wait to heal." Mara felt tears burning behind her eyes, but refused to let them fall. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I've fallen in love with you." The words came out rough, almost angry, as if he resented them even as he spoke them. "I didn't want to. I tried not to. I told myself it was too soon, that Sarah hadn't been gone a year, that you were just being kind, and I was confusing gratitude with something deeper. But last night, when Lily was sick and I was falling apart, you held us both together. And I realized, I don't want you here as an employee. I don't want a business arrangement or a temporary solution. I want you as my partner, my wife, Lily's mother. I want you to stay not because you're useful, but because you're loved, because I love you." The silence that followed felt endless. Mara stared at this man who'd given her shelter when no one else would, who'd treated her with dignity when the world had taught her to expect rejection, who was now offering her everything she'd dreamed of and nothing she'd dared to hope for. "Say something," Cole whispered. "Cole, even if it's no, even if I've misread everything and made a fool of myself, just say something." "I'm terrified," Mara admitted, her voice breaking. "I'm terrified because I love you too. I love you and Lily with everything in me, and I've been rejected so many times that I don't know if I can survive it happening again, especially not here, especially not with you." "Then don't let it happen." Cole reached for her hand across the table. "Don't run before you know what I'm offering. I'm not those other men, Mara. I'm not asking you to hide who you are or pretend to be something you're not. I see you, all of you, and I want all of you. The Cheyenne songs and the healing knowledge and the strength that comes from surviving things that should have broken you. I want the woman who stepped between a terrified child and a panicked horse. The woman who splinted my broken leg in a snowstorm and then learned to run a ranch in the middle of winter. The woman who sang my daughter through fever in 2 languages and wouldn't let death have her. Your wife, Sarah, is gone." The words came out gentler than Mara expected. "She's gone, and I will always love her memory, will always be grateful for the years we had. But she's not coming back, and she wouldn't want me to stop living because she couldn't stay. She told me that actually, near the end when she knew the pregnancy was dangerous. She made me promise that if something happened, I'd find happiness again. that I'd give Lily the family she deserved, that I wouldn't let grief make me a ghost. Tears were streaming down Mara's face now, unchecked. I don't know how to be someone's wife. I've tried and failed so many times. You know how to be Lily's mother. You're already doing that every day without even trying. And as for being my wife, Cole stood balancing carefully on his crutch and moved to where she sat. He cupped her face in his free hand, his thumb brushing away her tears. As for being my wife, I think we've been practicing that too. The partnership, the trust, the working together through impossible things. The only thing missing is the promise to make it permanent. What if people in town... To hell with people in town. Let them talk. They talked when I married Sarah too, and we built a good life anyway. His eyes searched hers. I'm not asking you to make it easy for us. I know it won't be. I'm asking if you're willing to be brave one more time, to risk hope one more time, to believe that this time, finally, you've found somewhere you belong. Mara thought about the train platform where she'd whispered her desperate prayer into darkness. About the little girl who'd seen a lost princess instead of an unwanted stranger. About the man who'd offered her dignity when she had nothing left. About the home she'd built from broth and Christmas decorations and healing songs sung through long nights. About belonging. Yes, she breathed. Yes, I'll marry you. Cole's face transformed, grief and caution falling away to reveal joy so pure it took her breath. You mean it? You're sure? I'm terrified and hopeful and probably making a terrible decision, but yes, I'm sure. I love you, Cole Harrow. I love your daughter. I love this ranch and this life and the family we've been building without quite meaning to. So yes, I'll marry you. He kissed her then, soft and careful, like she was something precious he was afraid of breaking. And Mara kissed him back, tasting salt from both their tears, feeling walls crumble and hope bloom, and the future opening like flowers after winter. Papa, Lily's voice came from the stairs, weak but curious. Why are you kissing Miss Mara? They broke apart, both laughing through their tears. Cole held out his free arm and Lily came running, still in her nightgown, her fever-pale face bright with curiosity and dawning understanding. Because I asked her to marry me, Cole said, pulling his daughter close. And she said yes. How would you feel about Miss Mara becoming your real mama? Lily's shriek of joy probably woke every animal on the ranch. She threw her arms around Mara's neck with such force they nearly toppled over. Really? 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 You're going to stay forever? You're going to be my mama for real? For real, Mara promised, holding the child tight. If that's what you want. It's what I wished for. Every night since you came, I wished on stars and said prayers and asked Mama in heaven to let you stay. Lily pulled back, her eyes shining. Mama sent you to us. I knew it. She knew we needed you and she sent you, and now you're going to be my mama and Papa won't be sad all the time and we'll be a real family again. We'll be a family, Mara agreed, her voice thick with emotion. A different kind than before, but just as real, just as full of love. Cole pulled them both close, his arms around both his daughter and his future wife, and for the first time since Sarah's death, the house felt complete. Not the same as it had been, nothing would ever be that again, but whole in a new way, healed in the places that mattered most. When can we get married? Lily demanded. Can we do it on Christmas? That would be perfect, like a present for everybody. Cole and Mara exchanged glances. That's 10 days away, Cole said. I don't know if... We can make it work, Mara said, feeling reckless with joy. If that's what you want, if you're sure. I've never been more sure of anything. Cole's hand found hers, lacing their fingers together. Christmas Day it is. The next week passed in a blur of preparation and healing. Cole's leg improved daily, though he still needed the crutch for distances. Lily recovered her strength with the resilience of childhood, bouncing back from her fever as if it had never happened. And Mara threw herself into planning a wedding with the same determination she'd applied to learning ranch work. But 5 days before Christmas, when Mara went to feed the chickens in the pre-dawn darkness, she heard something that stopped her heart. A low growl, deep and menacing, coming from the shadows near the coop. She froze, her mind racing. Bear was inside with Lily. This was something else, something wild and hungry and dangerous. The wolf stepped into the pale morning light, gaunt and desperate, its eyes reflecting lamplight from the house. It was starving. Mara could see every rib, every bone beneath mangy fur. Winter had been harsh, game scarce, and this creature was likely days from death. Between the wolf and the coop, with only a bucket of feed and her mother's old prayers for protection, Mara did something that would seem like madness to anyone who hadn't grown up between worlds, learning the old ways alongside the new. She set down her bucket carefully, held the wolf's gaze, and began to sing. Not a Cheyenne song this time, but something older, something her mother had taught her for exactly this moment, a boundary song, a song of respect between predator and prey, a song that said, "I see you, I honor you, but this is not your place." The wolf's ears flicked forward, listening. It took a step closer, then another. Mara held her ground, kept singing, her voice steady, even as her heart hammered against her ribs. She thought of Lily sleeping safe in her bed, of Cole struggling down the stairs on his crutch, of the life she'd just promised to build here. And she kept singing. Behind her, the door opened. "Mara!" Cole's voice was sharp with fear. "Don't move! I'm getting the rifle!" "No!" Mara didn't break eye contact with the wolf. "No guns." "It's starving, Cole. It's not attacking, just desperate. If you shoot, you'll break the boundary." "The boundary? Mara, that's a wolf. It could kill you in seconds." "It could, but it won't." She didn't know how she knew this, only that she did. Some instinct older than words, older than fear, telling her this was a test, that how they handled this moment would determine something important. She kept singing, kept holding the wolf's gaze, and slowly, with the patience learned from a lifetime of negotiating impossible spaces, Mara backed toward the house. The wolf watched but didn't follow. When she reached the porch, she set down the bucket of chicken feed and retreated inside. The wolf approached the bucket carefully, sniffed it, then turned away. Not what it needed. Mara understood. The creature needed meat, not grain. Without thinking, she grabbed the ham they'd been saving for Christmas dinner, opened the door, and threw it into the yard. The wolf took the offering and vanished into the pre-dawn darkness, silent as smoke. Cole stared at her like she'd grown a second head. "Did you just give a wild wolf our Christmas ham?" "It was starving. We have other food. It doesn't." Mara was shaking now, adrenaline draining away and leaving her weak. "My mother taught me, you don't kill what's already dying unless mercy demands it, and you honor the predators because they keep the world in balance. That wolf won't come back. It got what it needed without conflict. The boundary holds." "The boundary," Cole repeated slowly. Then, to her surprise, he laughed. Not mockery, but something like wonder. "I'm marrying a woman who sings to wolves. My life has gotten very interesting very quickly." But that night, when they were all gathered around the kitchen table for dinner, Lily asked the question that had clearly been bothering her all day. "Miss Mara, when you were singing to that wolf, were you scared?" "Terrified," Mara admitted. "But being scared doesn't mean you don't do what needs doing. It just means you're brave enough to do it anyway." "Like when you came here even though you were scared nobody would want you?" Out of the mouths of babes, piercing straight to truth. Exactly like that. "I'm glad you were brave." Lily reached for Mara's hand. "I'm glad you got off that train and stayed on the church bench and came home with us even though you didn't know what would happen. 'Cause if you hadn't been brave, we wouldn't have found each other." Cole's hand covered both of theirs. "To being brave," he said softly. "To taking chances even when they terrify us. To building families from strangers and hope from heartbreak." "To home," Mara added, her voice thick with emotion. "To finally finding home." Christmas Eve arrived with clear skies and bitter cold. Mara spent the day cooking with Lily's enthusiastic help, preparing the wedding feast that would follow tomorrow's ceremony. They made bread and roasted vegetables, a venison roast from the deer Cole had gotten before his injury, and pies with apples from the root cellar. The house filled with warmth and the sense of celebration, every corner alive with anticipation. That evening, after Lily was asleep, Cole found Mara standing at the window watching moonlight paint the snow silver. He came up behind her, his arm circling her waist, his chin resting on her shoulder. "Having second thoughts?" he asked quietly. About marrying you? No. She leaned back against him. About whether I deserve this happiness? Every single moment. You saved my daughter's life. You saved my life. You've given us back hope and joy and a future worth looking forward to. If anyone deserves happiness, it's you. I'm just afraid I'll wake up and this will all be a dream. That I'll be back on that train platform with nowhere to go and no one who wants me. Cole turned her to face him, his hands framing her face. Look at me. Really look at me. Does this feel like a dream? No, she whispered. It feels real. It feels terrifying and impossible and real. Good. Because tomorrow I'm going to stand before God and witnesses and promise to love you for the rest of my life, to honor not just what you do for us, but who you are, every complicated, beautiful piece of you. And I need you to believe I mean it. I'm trying to believe it. I'm trying so hard. Then let me help you believe it. He kissed her softly, thoroughly, a promise sealed with lips and breath. I love you, Mara Keaton. Tomorrow I'll love you as Mara Harrow, and every day after that, I'll love you more than the day before. That's not a dream, that's a vow. Christmas morning dawned crystal clear and bitterly cold. Mara woke to find Lily bouncing on her bed, too excited to contain herself. It's Christmas, and your wedding day, and everything's perfect, and we gotta get you ready. The little girl grabbed Mara's hand and pulled. Come on, I got everything planned. Getting ready became a production involving Lily's enthusiastic help and constant narration. The dress Mara would wear was simple, a blue wool dress from her limited wardrobe, nothing fancy, but Lily insisted on weaving flowers into her hair. Where did you get flowers in December? Mara asked, marveling at the small white blooms. They're paper, Lily admitted. I made them myself. They're not as pretty as real ones, but Mama always said it's the thought that counts. They're beautiful, Mara said, tears pricking her eyes. The most beautiful flowers I've ever seen. Downstairs, Cole was attempting to make himself presentable with limited success. His legs still pained him too much to wear proper boots, so he'd settled for clean work clothes and his best shirt. When Mara came down the stairs, his face transformed with such open joy that she felt beautiful despite her simple dress and paper flowers. You're perfect, he said roughly. Absolutely perfect. The ceremony was small, just Reverend Michaels, Dr. Patterson, and his wife as witnesses, and a handful of neighbors who'd heard about the wedding and come despite the cold. Mara stood in the same church where she'd spent that awful first night, but now everything was different. Now she was choosing to stay, choosing this life, this man, this family. Reverend Michaels kept the ceremony short, perhaps remembering the frozen woman he'd grudgingly allowed to sleep on his bench. Do you, Cole Harrow, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. Cole's voice was steady, certain. And do you, Mara Keaton, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? Mara looked at Cole, at Lily bouncing with barely contained excitement, at the small gathering of people who'd come to witness this moment. She thought about train platforms and rejections, about being unwanted everywhere she went, about prayers whispered into darkness. And she thought about little hands grabbing her sleeve, about a man who saw her as human instead of problem, about building a home from broth and Christmas decorations and songs in 2 languages. I do, she said, her voice ringing clear. I absolutely do. Then by the power vested in me, I pronounce you husband and wife. Cole kissed her to applause, and Lily's excited cheering, and Mara felt something inside her chest finally settle into place. Like a bone that had been broken so many times it had forgotten how to heal properly, suddenly knitting back together the right way. She was Mara Harrow now, wife, mother, rancher, home. The wedding feast was joyous and warm, neighbors bringing food and good wishes, sharing stories about Sarah and welcoming Mara as the new Mrs. Harrow. A few cast curious glances at her features, whispered questions about her heritage, but Cole shut down any negativity with a single look. My wife, he said firmly whenever anyone got too curious. That's all anyone needs to know. As evening fell and guests departed, the new family sat together in their decorated kitchen, Lily between her parents, Bear at their feet. Outside, the first stars were appearing in the darkening sky. What happens now? Lily asked sleepily, her head on Mara's shoulder. Now we live, Mara said softly. We work the ranch and celebrate holidays and have good days and hard days and build a life together. Will you still teach me songs, the ones in your mama's language? Every day, if you want? And will Papa smile more? 'Cause I like when he smiles. Cole pulled both his girls close. I think I'll be smiling a lot more from now on. Good, Lily yawned hugely. 'Cause you got a good smile. Mama always said so. After Lily was asleep, Cole and Mara stood on the porch watching the stars wheel overhead. Somewhere in the darkness, a wolf howled. Whether the same one from days ago or another, they couldn't know. But Mara felt no fear, only recognition, predator calling to the night, claiming territory, singing survival songs older than human memory. Do you think it's out there? Cole asked. Your wolf? Probably. Watching over us, maybe. Or just living its life, same as we're living ours. She leaned against him. My mother used to say that sometimes the universe sends us teachers in unexpected forms. That wolf taught me I could be brave even when I was terrified. That standing my ground and singing my truth was more powerful than running. Your mother sounds like she was a remarkable woman. She was. I wish she could have met you, met Lily. I think she'd be happy knowing I finally found my place. Not found, Cole corrected gently. Built. You built this place with your own 2 hands, Mara. Earned it through courage and kindness, and refusing to give up even when every rational reason said you should. Don't sell yourself short. They stood in comfortable silence, watching their breath frost in the air, feeling the cold bite but staying anyway because some moments demanded witnessing. Behind them, the house glowed with lamplight and warmth. Before them, the stars blazed in the winter sky, and between them, something precious and hard-won, love that had survived grief and trauma and impossible odds. Winter deepened into January, and life on the Harrow Ranch settled into new rhythms. Cole's leg healed slowly but steadily, letting him gradually return to full work. Mara continued learning the 1,000 skills ranch life demanded, becoming more confident with each passing week, and Lily thrived under their combined care, growing in confidence and joy. The town's initial curiosity about the mixed-race mail-order bride who'd married Cole Harrow eventually gave way to grudging acceptance. Mara's skill with healing herbs made her useful when Dr. Patterson was unavailable or too expensive. Her willingness to help neighbors in need, lending food during lean times, tending sick children, teaching women her remedies, slowly broke down barriers. By spring, when Mara discovered she was pregnant, even the most skeptical townspeople had to admit she'd become an integral part of the community. Mrs. Sullivan, who'd refused her a room that first night, actually brought baby clothes and advice. Reverend Michaels, who'd grudgingly let her sleep on his bench, performed a blessing for the coming child. Seems like you've won them over, Cole said one evening, watching Mara accept yet another gift from a neighbor. Not won them over, just proved I'm human, same as them. Mara placed a hand on her growing belly. This baby helps too. Hard to hate someone who's giving this town another future rancher. Is that what we're doing? Making future ranchers? Among other things. We're making family. We're making home. We're making proof that second chances exist and love can bloom even in the coldest winters. Lily, now 5 and impossibly proud to be becoming a big sister, had her own thoughts on the matter. The baby's going to have the best mama ever and the best papa and the best big sister, which is me. So basically, the baby's real lucky. We're all real lucky, Cole agreed, pulling both wife and daughter close. The baby came in early winter, as if choosing to arrive during the season when his mother had first found her home. A son, healthy and loud, with his father's dark hair and his mother's copper-tinted skin. They named him Samuel, after Cole's father, with the middle name of Running Wolf in honor of Mara's Cheyenne heritage. Your mama would be proud, Cole told Mara as she nursed their son. Both your mothers, actually. You've honored both their legacies. I hope so. Mara looked down at Samuel's tiny face, feeling her heart expand in ways she hadn't known possible. I hope I can teach him what my mother taught me, how to walk between worlds without losing himself, how to honor all parts of his heritage, how to be brave enough to claim his space, even when people say he doesn't belong. He belongs, Cole said firmly. Here, with us, in this family, and we'll make damn sure he knows it every single day. Spring came eventually, as it always did, melting snow and coaxing green things from the earth. Mara worked in the garden she'd claimed as her own, planting vegetables and herbs with Lily's help, while Samuel dozed in a basket nearby. The garden that had been dead and neglected now bloomed with life, fed by Mara's knowledge and care. "Mama used to garden here," Lily said, patting soil around a tomato plant. "I'm glad you're making it pretty again."
I think she'd like that. I hope so, sweet girl. Mara sat back on her heels, surveying their work. Gardens are like families, I think. They need tending and patience and love, and sometimes they need new growth alongside the old. Not replacing what was there before, but adding to it, making it richer. That's real smart. Lily considered this seriously.
"So I'm like the old growth because I was here first with Mama, and Samuel's new growth because you and Papa made him, and we're all in the same garden making it better." Exactly like that. That evening, after the children were asleep and the house quiet, Mara found herself standing in the spot where she'd first stepped off Cole's wagon those many months ago. It felt like a lifetime had passed since that frozen morning when she'd had nothing but a carpet bag and fading hope. Cole joined her, slipping an arm around her waist. "What are you thinking about?" "About train platforms and churches, benches, and desperate prayers. About a little girl who saw a lost princess instead of an unwanted stranger. About how different my life could have been if just one thing had changed, if Lily hadn't grabbed my hand, if you'd turned me away, if I'd given up and kept running. But you didn't run. You stayed. You fought. You built something beautiful from what looked like ruin." He turned her to face him. "Do you ever regret it? Staying here instead of trying again somewhere else?" "Not even once." Mara met his eyes without hesitation. "This is home, Cole. You and Lily and Samuel and this ranch and even this brutal Wyoming winter. All of it. I'm not the same woman who stepped off that train. She was lost and broken and convinced she didn't deserve to be loved. But this woman," she placed her hand over his heart, "this woman knows she's exactly where she belongs." They stood together as twilight deepened to dusk, watching the first stars appear. Somewhere in the hills, a wolf howled. Their wolf. Mara always thought of it, though she knew it belonged to no one but itself. The sound was lonely and beautiful and free. "Thank you," Mara whispered into the gathering darkness. "For seeing me, for keeping me, for loving all the parts I thought I had to hide." "Thank you," Cole echoed, "for bringing this house back to life. For being brave enough to stay when staying was the hardest thing. For teaching us that families can be built as well as born, and love can grow in the coldest seasons." Behind them, inside the warm house, their children slept safe. Around them, the ranch they'd saved together stretched toward the mountains. Above them, stars blazed in endless patterns, the same stars that had witnessed Mara's desperate prayer that frozen night. And standing there in the twilight, surrounded by the life she'd fought to build and the love she'd learned to accept, Mara Keaton Harrow finally understood what her mother had tried to tell her all those years ago. She was enough. She had always been enough. She just needed to find the people who could see it. And she had. In a lonely rancher who'd lost his way. In a little girl who believed in lost princesses and happy endings. In a community that learned to look past surfaces to see substance. In herself, finally, after years of believing she was something that needed fixing. The mail-order bride nobody wanted had become the woman everybody needed. And as Cole took her hand and led her back inside to warmth and light and the laughter of their daughter playing with her baby brother, Mara sent one final prayer skyward. Not a plea for belonging this time, but a thank you for receiving it. The train that had brought her here so many months ago was long gone, carrying other travelers to other destinations, other hopes, other futures. But Mara Harrow wasn't on it. She had found her destination. She had built her future, and she was finally, beautifully, irrevocably home.